Good morning, my brethren, all across the state of Indiana, and welcome to a very historic day as we stream live the Founders Day for the Grand Lodge of Indiana. I'm Paul Page, and not only is it a historic day, this is a great time for Masons. Despite the COVID, look how well we have done, how well we have striven to be really good as being Freemasons everywhere. I hope that this finds all of you in good health, well, and we wish that for you and yours for the coming year. Some weeks ago, the Grand Master asked you to submit an essay on why you were a Mason. We've taken those essays, and they'll appear later in many publications from the Grand Lodge of Indiana, but we've also edited them severely. I'll take credit for that if you're angry and you did it, but we've edited them severely, and we're going to show you now what many of your brethren think in terms of why I am a Mason.
After serving the U.S. Army for 6 years, and 2 of which were deployed in combat, I felt a void in my life and missed the sense of camaraderie I had with my fellow soldiers. I wanted to do something for my community and wanted to be a better father, brother, and son. I'm still here because the brotherhood I found in Freemasonry compares to no other. What I would tell a man looking to become a Freemason is this: if you are looking for an organization to find out who you are and what you can become, you've found it. Kenny Perkins, Calumet Lodge, number 379.
From traveling across the United States to reading volumes of literature to festive boards and degree work, I am so grateful for the opportunities and friendships I have made over the years in our great craft. Timothy R. Brinkmeyer, Pentalpha Lodge, number 564.
I've longed for brothers and friends in my life that run deeper than the surface. Also, I had the idea that I could give back and be part of something greater in life. I hope one day to regularly attend and grow. I have great potential.
The principles I learned in Masonry served as my guide to life, and I appreciate being a Mason. I am 86 years old and have been married 64 years. Yes, I am proud to be a Mason and appreciate the principles of life it has given me. John Hines, Social Lodge number 86.
I am a Freemason because I love what the Masons stand for, the brotherhood, and how we do our best to help our fellow man or brethren. Stanley Smith, Boone Lodge number 9.
I am here to learn how to be a better man. Why wouldn't another man want this for himself? Thank you for filling the void in my life. As long as a person is still learning, he is still growing. When you stop growing, I'm afraid you start dying. Charles Johnson, McClelland Lodge, number 357. It seemed like becoming a Mason almost was to be part of the craft ethic. I believe that my exposure to the craft helped me immeasurably to lead, train, and respect people for all they accomplished, from the time I was a supervisor with 20 people until the time I was a senior executive with 5,000 people in my charge. Wallace G. Wren, Millersville Lodge, number 126.
I became a Freemason after listening to my grandfather. Since becoming a Freemason, I've found a brotherhood that exceeds even that which I've seen in 13 years of law enforcement as a deputy sheriff. My journey to this point has been amazing, and look forward to the experiences to come as I continue eastward. Respectfully, Travis O'Neill, Plymouth Calwinning Lodge, number 149.
I am among brothers that I can trust should I be in need. I have tools to help me lead a balanced and productive life. I also enjoy educating brethren about how Masonry can be applied to our lives.
Paul Manglinger, Reed Lodge, number 316.
I want to throw myself into this in all directions. I'm a chaplain. As of now, I believe if I can become much more. Justin Greenwell, Lessing Lodge, number 464.
I've grown to appreciate the fraternal bonds I've forged with my Masonic brothers. The good and wholesome work that we do to better the community brings me joy. I would advise any man that looks to form such relationships and make a difference in their lives and communities to knock on the lodge door and seek more light in Masonry. Matthew Stackhouse, Blue River Lodge, number 457. I was enticed to Freemasonry because of the high moral status of many of its members. How one brother, once proven to be a brother, could accept another brother at their first encounter without reservation. Freemasonry is unique because it values quality of its members over quantity. Throughout its history, many brilliant and impressive leaders chose to become Freemasons. Or was it because they pursued the tenets of Masonry that they became brilliant and impressive leaders? John Van Natta, Grandview Lodge, number 191.
I became a Freemason to encourage others and promote God as my higher power. Tim Head, Lessing Lodge, number 464. My father was born in 1889, an era when business was conducted on the strength of a man's personal honor and a handshake. When I was young, I remember there was always a special tone in my dad's voice when he said about a man, "He is a Mason," or "He goes to our church." If Masons were special men to my dad, then I wanted to be one. A man I respected infinitely had effectively said that Masons were special men of honor and worth. I trusted my dad's opinion, and I wanted to be a special man too. Edward Sebring, Vincennes Lodge, number 1.
I would say to a potential new member, you can never tell where personal contacts will take you. But if you have a desire to be a leader and to make a lasting impression on society, Freemasonry is certainly a place where you can have your chance to do that. We espouse the traits of truth, integrity, charity, family, and patriotism. And as a leader, you will be asked to find ways for each of these traits to be exhibited by your group. We are not a religion or political party, but our beliefs are woven into the fabric of society, starting from before the Revolutionary War. Your participation can help ensure that our ideals will reach into the next generation. Philip Thrasher, Mystic Tie Lodge, number 398.
I was influenced by a Mason I've known since high school. He was beset by a lifestyle that was not a positive influence on his children and those around him. When I recognized the change in him after becoming a Mason, and then meeting and getting to know a new next-door neighbor that was a Mason, I knew I needed to be influenced by that positive image. I have always been interested in the history of the organization. That's the main reason I joined. James Summers, Nineveh, number 317.
My father died when I was 1 year old. He was a Mason in good standing. Mom lived some 40 more years, never remarried. At age 73, she was suffering with very poor health and was financially destitute. We were able to have her admitted to the Masonic home in Louisville. The folks there gave her, I thought, the best love and care available anywhere to my knowledge. Having gone through this experience with her, I promised our good Lord that I would follow the good example set by my Freemason father that I had never had the pleasure of knowing. Richard R. Roberts, Mooresville Lodge, number 83.
Freemasonry can be whatever you are looking for, and that it is not the same thing to every man. But at the core of it, it is a brotherhood, men serving each other, their community, and the great architect of the universe. Jeremy Clem, Naphtali Lodge, number 389.
Brothers, join me in saying the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of our country. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Brethren, please join me in the singing of our national anthem. Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave? Oh, thus be it ever, where free men shall stand between their loved homes and the war's desolation. Blessed with victory and peace, may the heaven-rescued land praise the power that hath made and preserved us a nation. Then conquer we must, when our cause it is just, and this be our motto: in God is our trust, and the star-spangled banner in triumph shall wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave.
Let us pray. Creator God, we look to you in thanksgiving for our great fraternity, for the generations of Masonic leadership that has brought us to this Founders' Day. As we stand upon the shoulders of those who have preceded us, look upon us with your bountiful compassion and upon those who continue to support and encourage us during these troubled times. We thank you for our Grand Master Kenneth, whose clear vision, wise leadership, and tireless support has carried us into this new year. I lift up to you, O Lord God, all who serve and lead within the lodges throughout our fraternity, and together with them, beseech you to grant us wisdom in all our doings, strength of mind in all our difficulties, and the beauty of harmony and holiness in all our meetings and work. And as we continue through our day today, inspire in us a sense of our mutual trust in you, that in our companionship with one another, your abounding grace may increase among us. This we pray in your most holy name. Amen.
Welcome, my brethren, to Founders Day 2021, a special streaming version of Founders Day. Let's honor the past Grand Masters, starting with Richard E. Hickam, 1970 to 71. Ronald K. Smith, 1976 to 77. Robert R. Stevens, 1983 to 84. J.C. Paxton, 1986 to 87. John E. Grind, 89 and 90. Daniel J. Leonard, 91 and 92. A. Vincent May, 1993 to 94. Michael D. Brumback, 1994 to 95. Douglas O. Fagenbush, 1997 to 98. Gail N. Kemp, 2000 to 2001. Richard W. Wurzba, 2001 and 2002. Roger S. Van Gordon, 2002-2003. James L. Chesney, 2003 to 2004. Richard J. Ellman, 2004 and 5. Dennis T. Harrell, 2005-2006. James N. Barkdale, 2006-2007. Dwayne L. Vaught, 2007-2008. Jeffrey P. Zering, 2008-2009. Charles F. Marlowe, 2009 and 10. Kenneth E. Willis Jr., 2010 and 11. Gregory C. Walbridge, 2011 and 12. George A. Ingalls Jr., 2012 and 13. Mark A. Janung, 2013 and 14. Daniel J. Barney, 2013 and 14. William A. Reiners, 2015 and 16. Carrie B. Carter, 2016 and 17. Rodney A. Mann, 2017 and 18. And Carl E. Coleman, 2018-2019. And now, my brothers, it is my distinct pleasure to introduce the sitting Grand Lodge of Indiana. Stephen P. Croman, photographer. John A. Bridegroom, PR and marketing. Michael K. Wright, the Grand Steward and Tyler. Jerry L. Burns, the Grand Organist. Randolph L. Seipel, the Junior Grand Deacon. David G. Morgan, the Senior Grand Deacon. Douglas E. Patmore, the Grand Marshal. Jackie A. Ash, the Assistant Grand Lecturer. Gary D. Tapley, the Grand Lecturer. Thomas P. Hansen, the Grand Chaplain. Richard J. Ellman, the Grand Secretary and past Grand Master. Kenneth E. Willis Jr., the Grand Treasurer and past Grand Master. Gary E. Brinley, the Junior Grand Warden. Richard L. Lentz, the Senior Grand Warden. Daniel L. Martin, the Deputy Grand Master. And Kenneth Roy Jr., the Grand Master of Masons in Indiana. We are live once again on the 5th floor of the Grand Lodge building of the Grand Lodge of Indiana in Indianapolis. And now the entire Grand Lodge is here with us on this live broadcast. So if all of you would please rise. Interactive, you know. And now will you join me in giving grand honors, 3 over 3, taking your cue from me. And now, the live portion with the Grand Master, his Grand Lodge, and of course, all of the people here who work so hard to make Masonry a good opportunity for all of us.
Thank you, Paul. Good morning, brethren, all over the state of Indiana and the United States. Welcome to Founders Day 2021. My name is Kenneth Roy Jr. I am the Grand Master Mason of the state of Indiana. I come to you from Evansville, Indiana, in the southwestern part of the state, and I would like to take just a moment to say hello to my friends and my brothers in Evansville, Indiana, Lodge number 64, who are, what? Okay. Oh, you moved around on me. But I would like to say hello to my friends and brothers from Evansville 64 who I know are gathered together in the dining room of Evansville 64 to enjoy the Founders Day information and celebration.
And I'm Danny Martin, Deputy Grand Master, State of Indiana. I'm a proud member of Westville, number 192, and I also would like to thank my brothers for being there at the Westville American Legion and partaking in Founders Day.
We would like to congratulate all of the new officers for 2021. It's going to be a challenging year for you.
And I'd also like to commend the officers that stayed in place for the year, to stepping up to the plate and doing what we need to do in this terrible time.
2020 has proven to be a challenge for everyone. And it's also taught us a few things about Freemasonry. Freemasonry does not live and die in the tiled recesses of a lodge. Freemasonry is a way of life. And it's also a challenge to look after the needs of our fellow man and our brethren. If 2020 has taught us anything, it has taught us that the need to practice the art of Freemasonry.
There's several examples of what we're speaking of. Calumet Lodge number 379, at the onset of this terrible pandemic, started a food giveaway every Wednesday night, which is up to 700 meals every Wednesday night. Brothers who would call on other brothers for well-being checks went out and helped senior citizens and people in the community get through this terrible time. It gave us an opportunity, if anything, to prove and practice the lessons we were taught.
It's also taught us to do some other things in life. We put out a challenge this year to a lot of our lodges around the state to get out and do things for some of their members. And one of the things that really pleases me is I received word from the chaplain of the Masonic home at Compass Park. She asked us to reach out to the lodges, and I'd like you to know that over 4,500 Christmas cards were sent by the lodges to the residents of Compass Park. And they each got something like 300 and some odd cards. And I would challenge you not to stop doing things like that into 2020. I would like to see this continue for the years to come. It's a blessing. It lifts people's spirits, and it is a worthwhile opportunity.
If we've been taught anything through this terrible time, is that we can meet any challenge, overcome any obstacle. Together, we can all do it together.
2021 is going to be a learning curve. You know, it's like I said last night, the good thing about 2020 was the fact that on March the 13th, when we decided that we needed to make some great changes in the way we presented Freemasonry, to me, it was the death knell for the term, we've never done it this way before. Freemasonry is a valuable gift, and we want it to continue for generations to come. Our delivery system in the next coming years may change somewhat, but the message is as dear and sweet as it ever has. So we challenge you to continue with your efforts to raise Freemasons and to spread Freemasonry throughout your neighborhoods. One of the other things we do is also we like to celebrate our brothers. And you know, a lot of our brothers around the state today are probably experiencing birthdays. And we have one among us here that we also are going to share just a moment of his birthday. And I would like to have Randy Seipel, our singing chaplain, and Doug Patmore, our birthday boy, to come forward, and we'd like Randy to lead us in a round of happy birthday to Brother Doug and all the Masons in the state of Indiana.
Brother, if you'll join me.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Doug. Happy birthday to you.
And many more.
Thank you, my brother. And now, I think we will move on to the recorded sessions of Founders Day, and I hope that you enjoy yourself very, very much. Thank you, and may God bless.
Thank you, brothers.
The Brotherly Relief Fund exists for the sole purpose of offering financial assistance for distress-worthy brethren, their widows, and orphans. The present fund grew out of the benevolence of the Scottish Rite Northern Masonic Jurisdiction Almoners Fund. Past Grand Master Gail Kemp presented the Grand Lodge of Indiana with $260,000 to establish our own Almoners Fund in May of 2017. Past Grand Master Rodney Mann and his Corps of officers renamed this fund the Brother Relief Fund to identify it as a separate Grand Lodge of Indiana fund. Within a year, it became obvious that the Grand Lodge of Indiana needed a way to continue to direct money into this fund. With the foresight of past Grand Master Mann and the Indiana Masonic Board of Directors, the Brother Relief Fund is now funded from an assessment from the craft that previously went to support the Indiana Masonic Home. $5 are assessed to each member to support the Brotherly Relief Fund. The fund has been used to provide support to members and their families for a variety of reasons. However, the most common are requests due to unexpected medical bills, catastrophic loss such as fire, and loss of employment by a wage earner of the family, and often the loss of employment by both the husband and wife. Each request is reviewed and assessed. All financial requests have not been granted, as a need is not necessarily a monetary one, but needs perhaps a reassessment of the individual's priorities and financial management. There is a distinct difference between want and need. One of the requests of the committee makes during its deliberation is, what help is the lodge providing? We try to contact the worshipful master and or secretary of the lodge to see what they know about the brother and his financial problems. We want to see the lodge reach out to the brother and his family and offer some assistance. That is truly a responsibility of the lodge and its membership. Since May of 2017, over $500,000 has been distributed to members or their families. At the present rate of requests, we will come close to depleting the fund this year. The fund is replenished early in the year as lodges return their recapitulation checks to the Grand Lodge office. With a diminishing membership, we may need to ask for a slight increase in the per member assessment in the next year or two. Those who qualify for relief must be brethren in good standing, their wives or widows, and children or orphans under the age of 21. A brother may ask for assistance, or a representative of his lodge may apply to the Grand Lodge office in his name. Information must be provided, includes who the relief is for, what are the circumstances that cause the need, how much is needed, and what has the lodge done to help. Application may be made by contacting myself, Kenneth Willis, past Grand Master, the Grand Treasurer, Richard Ellman, past Grand Master, the Grand Secretary, or any other Grand Lodge officer, by phone, email, or letter sent to the Grand Lodge office. Contributions are welcome and encouraged. All the information needed to apply for help or to contribute to the fund can be found on the back cover of the summer issue of the Indiana Freemason.
Hi, I'm Chris Hodap. I'm the Associate Director here at the Masonic Library Museum of Indiana. For those of you who have never been here before or don't know about the museum, we were first founded in 1987 and the museum was originally down in Franklin. In 2009, it was moved here to Indiana Freemasons Hall, or the Indianapolis Masonic Temple. In our collection, we have literally thousands of artifacts, documents, and books dating from the earliest days of the Grand Lodge and even before. We have artifacts such as the Masonic apron belonging to Kentucky Grand Master Joseph Davies when he went to Vincennes right before the Battle of Tippecanoe, before the Grand Lodge was even founded. We have one of the earliest copies of one of the very first exposures of Masonic ritual called Masonry Dissected that was published in 1723. Our artifacts are available, both the ones that are on display and up in our archives, available for research use, for just general interest. You can make an appointment with our folks here. We have interns every year from the IUPUI Museum and Library Studies program. And so we try and be as useful as we possibly can to Indiana's fraternal family. We can help you with research projects. We can find lodge histories from long before you joined your lodge, from the earliest days. All of it is in our records somewhere here in our collection. So we hope that you'll come and see many of the things we have here. We have artifacts from Indiana's Masonic history, both long ago and recent past. For instance, in 1948, President Harry Truman was on the campaign trail, and he saw a sailor in the audience when he was giving a speech up north near Kokomo. And the sailor in the audience turned out to be a friend of his from Washington, D.C. He was the president's personal masseuse, and he spotted him in the audience dressed in his sailor whites, and he asked him, "Where are you going?" And he said, "I'm headed for Indianapolis with my father and my uncle for my Master Mason degree." And the president, in the middle of his whistle-stop tour of flacking for votes that year, said, "I want to come to that Master Mason degree." They came to Indianapolis. The president gave his speech in Indianapolis, went to dinner, and then told the press, "I'm going to turn in early this evening." They did a switch in the car, and a decoy went down to Union Station to get on the train, while the president rode down to Beech Grove Lodge on the south side of Indianapolis to attend Mr. Baumeister's Master Mason degree. Well, we have artifacts from that night at Beech Grove Lodge. The lodge itself actually had a devastating fire last year, but we have many of the artifacts from that famous night. We also have President Truman. President Truman was also very interested in the history of Freemasonry. He was an absolute cheerleader for the fraternity. And so one of the things that he did, the entire inside of the White House had to be gutted and rebuilt in the 1940s and early 50s. So everything you see on the outside of the White House is very old. Everything on the inside of the White House is no older than the 1950s. And when they gutted the building, they found foundation stones down around in the lower levels, around the ground level of the White House. And the foundation stones had Scottish Masons marks on them. And the president had 50 of them set aside and sent to every Grand Lodge in the United States. But we have one of those foundation stones from the White House in our collection. So if you've never visited us before, we're on the 5th floor of the Indianapolis Masonic Temple. We are generally available by appointment any day of the week. We have our interns who are normally here during the week as well. And if no one can come down and meet you, we can have access granted to you to the museum in case you desperately have to get in here. We can handle that as well. So please come and see us. Please contact myself or Michael Brumbach, our director. We are more than happy to help your lodge and your research projects in any way we can.
Welcome. I'm Richard Lentz, Senior Grand Warden, and I'm here with Worshipful Brother Dirk Rader, our Grand Lodge State Coordinator for our committees.
Right, Worshipful Brother Richard, it's great to be with you here this morning at our Grand Lodge Founders Day. I'm excited to share some information with our Masonic brothers throughout the state about our Grand Lodge committees.
Well, Dirk, starting off the 2020 year, we had primarily 3 committees that we were working with. Who were they?
Richard, those are education, membership, and ritual. Each of these 3 committees are structured to provide local resources to each of our lodges throughout the state. With our state being divided into 10 districts, we have at least one member from each of these 3 committees actively working with the lodges in their particular district. In most cases, we have 2 or 3 members from each of these committees for each of the districts. So, as you can imagine, we have a considerable number of committee members throughout the state volunteering their time for the benefit of the craft.
During the afternoon of last year's Founders Day, we met in the afternoon to discuss a new method of improving communication and our committees. Dirk, can you share what that has been and how it's been working out?
Absolutely. As I mentioned, we have a significant number of members serving on these committees throughout the state. Fortunately, one of our committee members presented us with a software program that gave us exactly the solution we were looking for. It's called Microsoft Teams.
Dirk, how has Teams been improving our ability to work together with our committees?
The Teams communication system has worked so well that we have been able to expand the capabilities to several other committees, such as PR marketing, tech comms, and other groups within the Grand Lodge officers, Schofield House, etc.
Well, Dirk, I understand you have a fun fact for us, and that is, how many brothers do we have working together on our committees and utilizing this technology?
Well, Richard, 1 year ago, we had around 30 brothers and Grand Lodge officers working together by using conference calls. Today, we have just under 100 dedicated brothers bringing a new level of excitement and commitment, volunteering to improve their lodges and members.
Well, even though we have just under 100 dedicated brothers working to share the art of Freemasonry, if we have a brother that's interested in helping our committees, what would that brother need to do and the steps that he would need to take?
Richard, I am so glad you asked that question, as we were always looking for brothers that are interested in serving our fraternity and promoting the art of Freemasonry. The easiest way is to reach out to one of his local district committee members to let them know of their interest. That committee member can then share the information to myself or to one of our Grand Lodge officers.
Well, Dirk, I think the takeaway from this talk has been that even though we haven't been able to meet and spend as much time together as we would like, we have been working hard through our committees to improve the resources for our craft and our lodges. On behalf of Dirk and all the Grand Lodge officers, we wish you a safe winter and may our paths cross in our future travels. Enjoy the rest of the Founders Day's presentations.
Hello, I'm Gary Brindley, Junior Grand Warden, and with me is Worshipful Brother King Brinkmeyer, and we are here in the Masonic Library and Museum in front of the Indiana Masonic Home Display. One of our goals today is to do leadership training for the lodge officers and the members. We're using as our training base the 21 Irrefutable Laws of John C. Maxwell. Tim, would you mind explaining the 21 Irrefutable Laws?
Gary, I'd be happy to. Brethren, the 21 Irrefutable Laws were first laid down by Dr. John C. Maxwell in his book of the same name, first published in 1998. In it, he discusses the 21 laws, all of which are preceded by 4 principles, which can apply to each law. Let's take a look at those principles. They are: the laws can be learned, the laws can stand alone, the laws carry consequences with them, and the laws are the foundation of leadership. Knowing these principles can help us interpret the 21 laws more clearly. The laws are the law of the lid, the law of influence, the law of process, the law of navigation, the law of addition, the law of solid ground, the law of respect, the law of intuition, the law of magnetism, the law of connection, the law of the inner circle, the law of empowerment, the law of the picture, the law of the buy-in, the law of victory, the law of the big mo, the law of priorities, the law of sacrifice, the law of timing, the law of explosive growth, and last but not least, the law of legacy.
We are reviewing 3 laws today. The first law we are reviewing is the law of respect. Tim, would you give our audience an idea of what they should be looking for when they view this law?
Gary, we often hear that respect is earned, not given. And it's natural for people to follow leaders who are stronger than themselves. To add to this, when we look at leaders, we often look towards those who are trailblazers, those who have laid the foundation before us. There are 3 areas of credibility in leaders who garnish respect. The first is initiative. The second, sacrifice. And the third is maturity. Here, Dr. Maxwell explains more into the law of respect.
Law number 7, the law of respect. The law of respect says people naturally follow leaders stronger than themselves. Now, I've got a question I want to ask you, because this law of respect really has huge implications in your leadership life. Here's the question. And in the studio, while I'm asking my friends in the training tapes, I want to ask you the very same question. How many of you would like to lead more people and a higher quality of people at the same time? Huh? In other words, how many of you like to have increase your quantity and increase your quality? Now, if you raised your hand, and they all did here, if you raise your hand, I'm here to tell you that the law of respect will teach you how to do it. And the best way that I can illustrate how the law of respect plays into not only leading more people, but leading a higher quality of people, let's go back to the hand illustration I used when I talked to you about the law of the lid. If you remember when I talked to you about the law of the lid, I said, if you're a leadership, if this hand represents my leadership, and let's say it's a 4, and this hand represents my business, so the lid of my leadership will contain or hold down my business. If my leadership is a 4, my business is a 3. You know, it's just not going to go any higher. It's going to be contained under my leadership effectiveness. Now, when I was teaching that law, I was talking about the size of your organization, and that you cannot grow an organization bigger than you are. And that's very true. The law of respect, I'm using the same illustration now. If the law of the lid will not only allow you to grow an organization bigger than you are, it will not allow you to attract people better than you are. Let me explain. If I'm a 4 as a leader, if I'm a 4 as a leader, the people I attract to me will basically be 3s, 2s, and 1s. Does that make sense? In other words, when we teach the law of magnetism, which is another law which I will teach later on, when we teach the law of magnetism, the law of magnetism basically says you attract who you are, not who you want. Well, in the law of respect, I'm saying people follow leaders that are strong themselves. So in other words, if I'm a 4 as a leader, I'm not going to attract a lot of 7s and 8s. 7s and 8s aren't going to follow me. And I have a quote in your note this is huge. It says, the more leadership ability a person has, the more quickly he or she recognizes leadership or its lack in others. Now, that is just a huge statement. So let me explain what I mean by that. Haven't you been in a room where perhaps you were a better leader than the person that was leading? And you realized that you were a better leader. I'm not talking about arrogance. I'm not talking about thinking more highly of yourself than you should. It's just the fact that you knew you were a better leader. Now, if you're a 7 as a leader and you happen to be having to follow a 4, you're not going to want to do that. In fact, that's why there's so much frustration in the workplace. Isn't that true? There's frustration in the workplace because you've got people that are perhaps better leaders that are underneath a lesser leader, and it causes all kind of conflict. Now, here's the good news. Let's go back to the illustration I used of the hand again. If I'm a 4 as a leader, and I go from a 5 to a 6 to a 7, in other words, I can learn leadership, and I grow, I learn these laws, I apply them in my life, and over the process of time, I become a better leader. If I go from a 4 to a 7, not only do I increase the quantity of my organization from a 3 to a 4 to a 5 to a 6, I increase the quality of people I attract. all of a sudden, if I'm a 7 as a leader, I'm attracting 6s. Now think about it. As a 4 of a leader, I was attracting 3s. Now what I'm saying to you is I've now doubled the quality of a person that I've attracted. And this is huge. And here's why it is. I was doing a couple of years ago a national conference for Chick-fil-A. And during a question and answer period, a person raised his hand and he asked me this question. He said, John, how do I find leaders? Find potential leaders. He said, I want to find potential leaders for my organization. And when he said, how do I find potential leaders? I looked at him and I said, you have to know what they look like. But let me say something else. You can't attract potential leaders if you're not a leader yourself. Like begets like. So in this law of respect, what I'm saying to you is, as you grow as a leader, you're not only going to increase the quantity as far as the size of your company, you're going to increase the quality, the kind of people that you attract to it. And here's why. People don't follow people by accident, and people don't follow people that are not good leaders. Let me explain it to you this way. When people respect you as a person, they admire you. And it's wonderful to be admired. When people respect you as a friend, they love you. But when people respect you as a leader, they follow you. I remember several years ago I did a lesson called RESPECT. Tell me what you think. I mean, I didn't sing or dance. But basically I was trying to share with people how important it is to have respect. Now what I want you to understand is respect is not a given. It's earned. In fact, if you think back at the law of influence, when I taught you about the 5 levels of influence, I taught you that the highest level was the personhood level, and the key word there was respect. People follow you because you've done so well with so many for so long that you've absolutely gained their respect. Now, you have to gain respect. It's not a given. It's something that has to be earned. So in your notes, let me share with you how to earn respect, how to gain respect from other people as a leader. Number 1, have a respect for other people. It's very important for you as a leader to be respectful of other people. The best way I can explain it is I observe leadership and observe leaders all the time. And I mark a man or a woman, I mark a leader if they don't respect their people. For example, I think it's a character flaw. For example, if I'm leading and you happen to be the people that I'm leading, you happen to be my people, I think it's I look for a leader to have respect for the people with them that, quote, this is not a good phrase, but I'm going to just use it to illustrate, people that are under them. Here's what I want you to understand. When a leader powers up on people beneath them, or takes advantage of people beneath them, or manipulates people beneath them, or doesn't respect people beneath them, I think it's a huge character flaw. In other words, when you have power on people and you misuse that power, I think you have violated your leadership. Does that make sense? And it's amazing how a person behaves, quote, when they can get by with it. Did you get that? And when a leader can, quote, get by with treating people unkindly or kind of, quote, running over them or taking advantage of them, whenever I see that happen, I always look at that leader and I realize that they have a character flaw. Because the best way to get respect from other people is to give respect to people. And the moment that you and I do that, then respect begins to be returned to us. So step number 1, I suppose, really has nothing to do with leadership. It has to do with the golden rule. It has to do with respecting other people. The second way to gain respect is by courage. I have found that in the area of leadership, people will respect you when you make a courageous decision. And I define a courageous decision this. A courageous decision is one that I make because it's right, not because it has a probability of passing, or not because it benefits me. It's just a right decision. That's courage. The ability to be courageous and step out and make decisions that benefit your company but don't benefit you. Benefit your people but don't benefit you. That's a courageous decision. Thirdly, I think that you earn respect by success. People want to follow successful people. Let me put it this way. Have you ever known somebody who said, I'm just looking for a leader? Have you found a leader that just fails a lot? Man, I would love to. Are you a leader that messes up? Do you just kind of get into dead-end streets and kind of blow yourself out of the water? Because, boy, could I attach myself to you? No. I've never known a person who said, boy, if I could just have a coach that's a bad coach. You know what I'm saying? Boy, if our team could just get a coach that loses all the time, that would be huge for us. No. No, you got to have success. Because people want to go to the top, and they want to get with people who can take them to the top. So if you want respect, you've got to get some success under your belt. Number 4, consistency. Just the ability to keep on keeping on and day in, day out be the same. Consistency is huge because people want to follow somebody that they not only trust, they want to follow somebody that's dependable. Number 5, you gain respect when you add value to others. Oh, I love that. The ability to add value to others, to come alongside of them and really take them to a level that they would not go on their own. That gives you respect. And finally, number 6, just pure leadership ability. The ability to lead people effectively is absolutely important in gaining respect. Now, let me just close this law of respect by sharing with you that there are 2 what I call kind of like acid tests of respect. In other words, when people come to me and they say, John, do you think I have the respect of people around me as a leader? There are 2 ways that I can always look. I can look at you, I can look at myself, I can look at anybody in a leadership position, and I can tell you how you can know if you have the respect of your people, and you can go to the bank on these 2 things. The first test of respect is the response of people when you ask for commitment. They will only commit if they respect you. I have watched it happen time and time again. When you have a group of people and they don't make the commitment necessary, it's almost always a lack of respect to the leader. And the second area, the second test of respect, is the response of people when the leader asks them to change. You show me a group of people that will make big commitments and major changes. I will show you a group of people that highly respects their leader, because people will not make commitment and not make changes unless they really respect a leader. You don't do that for somebody you don't. You don't make changes. You don't make commitments for somebody that you don't respect. So when somebody comes to me as a leader and says, John, do you think my people respect me? I ask them this very simple question. Do you find the people that work with you, do they make commitments, major commitments, and do they make major changes for the organization to be successful? If so, they respect you as a leader. Leaders become real leaders because of ability, what they can do. What I've just shared with you about real leaders becoming real leaders, spend some time there. Ask yourself, am I a person of character? Do I have good relationships with people around me? Do I know what I'm doing? Do I sense what's happening to those around me? Do I have good experience? Have I had some good wins under my belt and some past experiences? And do I have just good, decent ability? Because the law of E.F. Hutton says, when the real leader speaks, people listen.
We are here back in the Masonic Library and Museum in front of the Caleb B. Smith display. Tim, would you explain what we learned in the law of respect?
Absolutely. Gary, the law of respect teaches us that when people respect you as a person, they admire you. When they respect you as a friend, they love you. And when they respect you as a leader, they'll follow you. And these laws are how leaders teach us that we're not created equal. And the talent alone cannot carry us to fruition. There's always room to grow in leadership and in respect. When growth happens, it will naturally attract better people around you. And even they may follow you as a leader.
You know, Tim, there were 2 items in this law that I picked up. One was respect for the others, and the other one was dependability or consistency. Tell me how we could take this law and use it in the lodge.
Gary, within a Masonic Lodge, we already have the foundation or chairs of leadership. This path is very clear to us. What may not be so clear is how to utilize the strengths of each chair and of each brother within the lodge around you to become a great and effective leader. If you're a Masonic leader and become frustrated with your followers, whether it be the brethren, your officers, perhaps those following you have higher capabilities, and leadership capability within each person has more to it. Sometimes a lack thereof, as we find in others. Leadership, particularly in a Masonic Lodge, is voluntary, which is all the more reason followers who give freely of their respect, their time, and their efforts foster that fraternalism and brotherhood within the lodge, and members who, even long after they've served, remember and respect the leaders who they followed.
Welcome home to Youngs Creek Apartments, Franklin's premier 55 and older community. Choose from our spacious 1, 2, or 3 bedroom designs. Our units feature stone countertops, stainless steel appliances, walk-in showers and closets, 24-hour security, underground parking, and more. Bi-weekly housekeeping gives you more time to enjoy the rooftop garden, coffee bar, fitness areas, and restaurants. Cable, phone, internet, and utilities are included. Now taking deposits. Reserve your space today. Experience the elegance of Youngs Creek Premier Apartments at Compass Park.
Your Masonic Education Committee is continuing to work on resources for you to use in your lodge. One of the items that they have prepared is how to use the Grand Lodge portal to get to the resources that you can use for your lodge. Please enjoy the following message.
Are you David Morgan, the great Masonic investigator?
I am, the one and only. How can I help you today?
Well, my name's Gary Brinley, but you can call me GB. I'm a Mason from Indiana, and I'm in search of some Masonic education for my brothers.
Well, GB, tell me about your problem. I'm here to help.
Well, I'm supposed to find Masonic education for the brothers in my lodge. I go to bed at night and I dream of Masonic education. And then I wake up and I may have cold sweats and I forget everything that I dream about. I fear I may have the dreaded Edge Source 20 virus. I may even have to go to the Grand Lodge portal.
Now, GB, that is a great place to start. However, before we get started, if you would, let's get you sanitized. Lord knows we don't want everyone coming down with that Edge Source 20 virus. Please, have a seat. I have a quick question for you, GB. Do you have a smartphone or a computer?
Well, I have both.
Oh, well, that's going to make it a lot less difficult. Let's have you take some notes. Here's some paper, and here's a pen. Oh, I see you have plenty of pens. I want you to take some notes because I don't want you to wake up in the morning and not remember this. Okay, GB, you mentioned earlier that you had heard of the Indiana Grand Lodge portal website. What exactly do you know about that?
Well, I have my login ID and my password. And I've heard the Grand Master say that there's some great stuff out there. But, you know, I'm a little afraid of computers.
That's very common. A lot of people get nervous around computers. However, GB, if I can navigate the portal, anyone can navigate the portal. Let's look at some example resources. If you want, you can pull your chair a little closer.
And now, through the magic of the internet, our brothers are traveling into the sanctum sanctorum of information for Indiana Freemasons, the Grand Lodge portal. To continue their journey for further light, they dutifully enter their username and password. After being admitted into the inner chamber of the portal, they must navigate all the passages to obtain the knowledge which has been kept for them. Upon reaching the officer/member section, they are presented with 22 volumes of knowledge, including Indiana Freemasons magazine, the Lodge leadership and essential notes. By returning to the resources tab on the top of the page, our journey can take us down new paths of enlightenment. Click on the Grand Lodge Programs section. Here, brethren can take group or solo journeys for further light. Consider the Illumination Program. This self or group study program covers questions pertaining to the Blue Book of Masonic Law, the Indiana Monitor, and the Ritual. Having trouble in the Lodge? Consider the Lodge Builder Program, covering topics including membership, finance, and the Indiana Ritual. Have new Master Masons and you want to get them involved? Consider having them apply for the Rookie Award. It is a special participation award for their first year of Masonry. Are you in line for the East? Then read The Traveler's Journey, a practical guide to serving your lodge from the East. All of these just one click away.
Wow, that is amazing. All of that in one place.
It is the most amazing thing, GB. It's there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 52 weeks a year.
Well, let me take a look.
Whoa, GB, careful. I'm not sure this computer has that kind of virus protection.
Oh, well, sorry. Well, that's a lot. You know, I think there's enough information there for me to get 10 years worth of Masonic education. You know, I really appreciate what you've done.
It's not a problem, GB, and just what I've done and sharing with you, my hope is you'll go out and share with lodges that you're making presentations at. So,
well, thank you very much. Well, I'm
glad to do it.
Thank you. Well, I do have one other question.
Sure, GB.
The name of your firm, Winding Stairs Private Investigations. How did you get that?
Well, GB, it's mostly symbolic, and it comes from a great educational source called the Indiana Monitor and Freemasons Guide. If you would, I'd like to read a few sentences to you.
Sure, that'd be great.
Education and achievement call for constant effort. The exercise of his faculties requires man to be ever climbing upward, step by step. In climbing the stairs of life, we are dependent on the assistance of other men. We should therefore reciprocate by giving them assistance. Our labor should tend to advance society. We are to work for the good of mankind, not for ourselves alone. And GB, all this, I predict, will make our pursuit truly laudable.
I like that. My pursuit is truly laudable.
And now we will hear from Compass Park and the Indiana Masonic Home Foundation.
most important person that they're there to care for. And that in itself is a tremendous blessing. It gives you so much peace of mind.
About 3 years ago, my mom came to live with us, and she was 94 at the time and not in very good health. So after about 18, 19 months, I knew I needed a little bit more help with her. And so I started thinking more seriously about that. And then there was an ad in the paper for Compass Park. And so I showed it to my husband.
And she showed it to me again. And then she showed it to me again. And you know, somehow or another, their light just went on. So I sat down with her one day and we just started doing the math. And we found that for the one-bedroom apartments that could fit into our finances fairly well. And so we came over and had a tour. And in this tour we saw that there was a two-bedroom might really work, and then we could have her mom with us and keep going. Well, when we came back to put money down, the two-bedroom was gone. But the actual good situation was that her mom was able to get an apartment in the assisted living, and Joyce and I would be here in the main building. Now, but this may not sound really a big deal, but the thing is that it does give us space between her mom and us. And Joyce goes over to see her every day and talks to her, helps her out and everything like that. And whenever we need to go places, well then I'm the chauffeur for it all. But here in the home, we're taken care of well, but the big deal is that her mom is taken care of well.
I call it my five-star hotel, and it's such a wonderful, caring place.
I love it here. I have good friends. I have become involved in a lot of things in the city. I love the new restaurants and venues in the city.
I had a heart problem, and so we thought this was the thing to do, to move here instead of going to a smaller place. It was too much for us to take care of where we lived, and so we wanted to make one move and do it.
And I noticed there wasn't very many complaints, and you're not going to find some place where there are no complaints. So on our making of the decision, that helped us make our decision to come down here, and we haven't regretted it. Well, the best change I've seen here is the new skilled nursing center. That is really someplace. Yeah, what I like about this place. They're moving forward. They're moving to the future, and it's going to be always going to be a better place to live when you have that.
We probably would have been here 5 years sooner, but with the economy the way it was, we couldn't sell our house, so we just needed to sit and wait. And 2.5 years ago, things turned around, so we were able to move down. We were tickled to death to be here. We've known for a long time that this is the place for us, and we cannot imagine it not being the place for everyone. There is so much activity that there's no way you can do everything that happens. You just have to pick and choose. And that's the nice thing. You can do as much as you want or nothing at all. So for me, the nothing at all is very appealing, and I enjoy that a lot. For my wife, it's
the wine club and the cards and and the running here and there, and I like that kind of thing, and so it gives me social activity even when he doesn't want social activity at the time, and that's fine. We're okay with that. So we've been married 50 years and we know how to get along. We didn't realize that it became more than a community. It becomes a family. And that's what's really nice about the whole thing. We're a family. And you can't need or want anything without someone coming to your aid. It's amazing. It's just wonderful here.
Another comforting thing for me is to know that if something happens to me,
I can be taken care of, and he knows it. And if something should happen to me, I know that he will be all right and be taken care of also. So, you know, you can relax knowing that that's the way it is.
Hi, I'm Eric Vermeulen of the Indiana Masonic Home Foundation. Since 1936, through your generosity, the Foundation has provided financial resources to help our most cherished brothers and sisters who call Compass Park home. Now, more than ever, in the midst of this pandemic, your support is absolutely crucial to helping Compass Park staff to battle the virus while still providing the same excellent level of care that they always have. So, you can ask, how can you help? Well, there are so many ways to help, including making a planned gift through a bequest or a trust, or making IMHF the beneficiary of a life insurance policy, directing a charitable IRA distribution to IMHF, making a tax-wise gift of stock. Of course, you can always participate in our donor clubs, as so many already do, from the gold card at the $100 level to the $365, all the way up to the Grand Master's Circle. Did you know that you can donate your car, truck, or RV to the foundation? You can. Then, of course, there's our brick program, which allows you to honor a loved one or a brother or sister of your lodge or chapter right there on the grounds of Compass Park. And don't forget our Amazon Smile and Kroger gift programs, as well as Facebook fundraisers. So that's the how. What about the why? Why should you help Compass Park and its residents? Well, remember our obligation to help, aid, and assist. And it feels good. But you may also, or a loved one, may need the services of Compass Park at some point. Most importantly, we need to make sure that we are there to help ensure that our most cherished brothers and sisters have the quality of life that they deserve, are healthier and happier, and don't have to choose between paying for medicine and food. Thank you for your support through the years, and thank you for everything that you do for the residents of Compass Park.
Welcome back. The second law we are showing is the law of connection. Tim, would you mind explaining what the audience should pick up in this law?
Gary, in the law of connection, we learn that a leader must first connect with someone's heart before their head. People are not moved to action otherwise, especially in a Masonic lodge. For leaders to be effective, they need to connect with people. Here, Dr. Maxwell explains more about the law of connection.
The 10th law of the 21 irrefutable laws of leadership is the law of connection. And the law of connection says leaders touch a heart before, and maybe you need to underline that word before, they ask for a hand. In other words, when you really understand the law of connection, you realize that you have to touch a person emotionally and relationally before they'll ever begin to do things in a physical sense with you. You've got to touch their heart before you ask for their hand. This is a tough law for a lot of leaders because leaders are action-oriented, and a lot of times leaders don't want to mess with the relationship stuff. They don't want to mess with the connection stuff. They just say, look, here's where I'm going, and I want you to go with me, and let's go. And they don't want to do what I call the homework and the preparation needed for relationships. But let me just say this to you. I think to a great degree, relationship is leadership. Let me put it this way. People won't go along with you if they cannot get along with you. You don't want to take a trip with somebody you don't like. You don't want to take a long journey with somebody that you don't get along with. And every one of us know what it's like to work with somebody that we don't get along with. And you know, the good news is that you can work with them. The bad news is you don't want to take a vacation with them. Isn't that right? How many of you know at least one person that you don't want to take a long trip with? Oh, yeah. How many of you are seated beside that person right now? Don't raise that hand. Those second questions I ask you are always IQ questions. Keep your hand down. We all know what it's like. Every one of us know what it's like to have to work with people we don't care for. And that whole relationship, it just doesn't mesh. Now, here's what I'm saying. Leaders understand that they've got to connect with the heart before they can ask the hand. Going back to when I was doing the law of influence, going back to that for a moment, the second level in the laws of influence or the laws of leadership, the second level was the permission level, and that is people do things with you because they like you. So you have to begin to become likable. Starts with your appearance, starts with your face. Don't you just look at some people sometimes and just say, I don't care to meet them? Huh? Haven't you been on an elevator and somebody gets on the elevator and you just look at them? They don't say a word. They haven't said one word. They haven't said a word. Do you know one? They just get on the elevator and just look at them and just say, oh, thank God I'm not going home with them. And it amazes me, especially leaders who have to be in the people business, it amazes me how many of those leaders aren't good with people. And I just want to go up to them and I say, man, you don't have a shot at this. You're never going to be successful as a leader because people don't relate to you, not connected with them. That's why, 4 or 5 years ago, I wrote a book called Becoming a Person of Influence. And I wrote the book, Becoming a Person of Influence, and people look at it and they say, it's a relationship book because I talk about 10 ways to influence people. Well, it is a relationship book. You know what it really is? It's a soft leadership book. It teaches you how to influence others and relate to them because, again, if you do not touch your heart, you will not be able to ask for a hand. Now, this is an area that I love because I love communication and I love connecting. And just let me try to get real practical with you and help you walk through this area of connecting with people. And I would want you to know, before I give you the list, I would want you to know that I think connecting with people is a leader's responsibility. A lot of times I'll run to leaders and they'll say to me, well, my people my people aren't coming along. And when I was a kid, I used to go down to General Electric where they had where they had the shipping area, where trains were coming in and unloading stuff and they're picking up stuff. And I love to just go out there and sit and watch the trains come in and couple and uncouple the cars and the whole deal. And you know what I always noticed? I always noticed that the locomotive always was responsible to back up and couple with the other cars. I never one time saw a boxcar running around the track saying, man, where's the locomotive? I know. No. If you're the leader, and by the way, when they would come back in and they would hit those cars, that didn't mean that they connected with those cars. They didn't connect with those cars just because they hit them. Just as you don't connect with people just because you had a meeting. They had to learn to couple those cars. Once in a while, I'll run to a leader and I'll say, well, I had a meeting with him. We had lunch. Hello. You got to connect. You have to couple. So how do you connect with people? Number one, connect with yourself. The first thing to do is to be able to connect with yourself. Let me just put it this way. If you have never connected emotionally with yourself, you'll never be able to connect emotionally with someone else. You have to know yourself. You have to accept yourself. You have to love yourself. You can't love someone else if you don't love yourself. You can't relate to others if you can't relate to yourself. If nobody's home internally, there'll be no one home externally. Connect with yourself. Number two, share with openness and sincerity. What I have found is that it's just best to be open and sincere with people. It develops a sense of trust. Number three, live your message. Very simple. What you ask your people to do, do it. In fact, a leader should never ask his or her people to do something that leader is unwilling to do themselves. Remember, be a tour guide, not a travel agent. Don't send people, take people. Live your message. Flesh it out. They ought to be able not only to hear your words, they ought to be able to see your life. And let me tell you something. Hearing your words and seeing your life ought to be the same. And when what you say and what you do, when your behavior and your words match, it's just tremendous what you can do as far as leading and developing people. Number 4, know your people. Very simple. You cannot lead people until you know them. You have to know what the keys to their life is. You have to understand what their strengths are, what their weaknesses are. You got to spend, and the only way that you can know your people is to spend time with your people. That's why leaders walk slowly through the crowd. What was it? Many, many, many years ago. Management by walking around. Boy, that became huge, didn't it, across America? But it's just a trick. It's a great concept. Still is. Walk slowly through the crowd. Spend time with your people. Understand them. Get to know who they are. Know their strengths, their weaknesses. If I could stop right now and ask you as a leader, what are the key points of the people that you lead? What are their strengths? What are their weaknesses? What do they do well? What do they love? What do they buy into? What don't they buy into? What are their values? If I could ask those kind of questions, would you be able to give me answers, or would you just be giving kind of shots in the dark on your people? See, leaders understand that you don't lead everybody the same way. People have different strengths, different giftnesses, different desires, different goals. And the great leaders understand the only way you can lead people effectively is by knowing them well. So know your people. Number 5, communicate on their level. Don't communicate on your level. Come down to where they are. Understand what they're thinking. The expression I have is put the cookies on the lower shelf. Let everybody have one. Don't be an educator. An educator takes something simple and makes it complicated. Be a communicator. Take something complicated and make it simple. Get it down to their level so they can understand it and grab hold of it. Number 6, give yourself totally to the people and the message. Whatever your vision is, whoever your people are, give yourself to both. Don't be a leader that buys into the vision and not the people. A leader that buys into the vision and not the people will be a leader who has a vision only for himself or herself. And don't be a person that buys into the people and not the vision. The good news is you have great relationships, but you aren't going anywhere. Buy into the vision and the people. Both are essential. Number 7, believe totally in the people and the message. Believe totally in the message and the vision and the people. Here's what I love, and I think it's very true. It's wonderful when the people believe in the leader, but it's even more wonderful when the leader believes in the people. Be a leader that believes in your people. Number 8, share how the vision or the message has touched you. The only way that anyone else will buy into the lesson, the message, the vision, the mission that you're on, the only way they'll ever buy in it is if you say, look, here's what it's doing for me. Here's the areas of change I'm bringing in my life to bring this vision to pass. Always let them see how it has positively affected you before you ask them to let it positively affect them. And number 9, offer direction and hope. Come alongside of them and offer direction and hope. And remember this, leaders are dealers in hope. Somebody comes up to you and say, what are you? You say, I'm a hope dealer. A classic example of the law of connection is Herb Kelleher, the CEO of Southwest Airlines. Several years ago, I think it was in USA Today, I read these following words, and I want you to see them because this is classic law of connection. Thanks, Herb. This was paid for by his 16,000 employees on Boss's Day. Thanks, Herb, for remembering every one of our names, for supporting the Ronald McDonald House, for helping load baggage on Thanksgiving, for giving everyone a kiss, and we mean everyone, for listening, for running the only profitable major airline, for singing at our holiday party, for singing only once a year, for letting us wear shorts and sneakers to work, for golfing at the Love Classic with only one club, for out-talking Sam Donaldson, for riding your Harley-Davidson into Southwest headquarters, for being a friend, not just a boss. Happy Boss's Day from each one of your 16,000 employees. That's the law of connection.
And we're back. We're standing here in front of the display of the Indianapolis Masonic temples here in the Masonic Library and Museum. Tim, would you recap for us what we just learned in the law of connections?
Gary, I'd be happy to. I want to start by just telling a little story. You know, when I used to attend concerts pre-COVID, I always appreciated the artist or the band who would gear up the audience, who would get them in the mood for the night, because it would allow people the chance to dance or sing along and really get into the feeling of the evening. They wouldn't just stand there in one spot. Leaders often must connect with either a small or large group or audience, and sometimes this can be difficult. Perhaps not everyone has had enough coffee, or they're tired, or there's a veteran in the audience who knows everything, and he really didn't come there for this part of the segment for that day, and it's tough to connect with those kind of people. Leaders then must cut through and connect with at least one person in the body. One person, because perhaps through that connection alone, they can come away from the meeting or gathering with a new enthusiasm and zealousness for the activity. By that one connection alone, a leader can make a difference.
Tim, you know, this law really connected with me. I use the management technique, management by walking around, in my daily work to connect with my employees. Tim, how can this be used in the lodge?
Absolutely, Gary. Brethren, Dr. Maxwell points out that the tougher the challenge, the greater the connection. Sometimes we hear this, the greater the reward. Well, how pertinent is this to our Masonic lodges? The master and the wardens must connect with the new initiate, the membership, and even the past masters alike. And this takes courage in the face of feeling like a poor leader. In this COVID climate that we find ourselves in today, the connection becomes even more greater and more difficult. It is the master and the warden's job to connect with the membership of their lodge to continue the growth of the fraternity. Most people don't care how much you know as a leader until they know how much you care. The connection in Freemasonry is the heart and soul of our brotherhood, and it is this force which connects us through the ties that bind, those ties which make us brothers. Leaders must be good communicators, and they must connect with their audience. By doing so, a master or a warden is able to build their public speaking skills as well as their repertoire within the lodge, and have the confidence and the ability to sit in their station or place and communicate and connect with the brothers in the lodge. Gary, lastly, the craft as a whole, it is the duty to every Mason to connect with your brothers and empower every Mason to succeed.
Welcome to the new Skilled Nursing and Rehabilitation Center at Compass Park. We develop a custom rehabilitation program just for you, from physical, occupational, and speech therapy to so much more. Our state-of-the-art facilities and experienced staff will ease your transition back from a hospital stay. For residents in need of more intensive care, we offer hotel-like amenities, including private rooms, restaurants, including a 24-hour bistro, salon, pool, transportation, and more. Plan your visit today at Compass Park's Skilled Nursing and Rehabilitation Center.
Many of you are wondering how you might best help Compass Park and its residents during this pandemic era. Many of you are already involved in our donor card programs, perhaps the most popular of which is our Gold Card program. For $100 during the year, and that can be all at once or in several increments, you can help assist the residents of Compass Park, and you can display this card in your wallet proudly. Please do your part to help the Masonic Home and its residents by investing in their welfare and well-being through the Gold Card program. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Gary Brindley, your Junior Grand Warden, and with me is Randy Seipel, your Junior Grand Deacon. And we are here today to talk to you about membership. Randy, this has been a unique year. our lodges were closed for about a period of 75 days in the spring. And since then, I've seen lodge attendance and activity has been down. What should lodges be doing?
Gary, that's a great question. You know, everyone's been just basically locked up, and keeping members engaged is extremely important. And there's several different ways that we can do that. By emails, by letters, newsletters, but more importantly, a simple phone call goes a long way to let a brother know that he's cared about and that people are thinking about him.
That is right, Randy. We can even take a page out of the Scottish Rite playbook and do good cheer calls to our members. Have the officers get together one evening with a lodge membership list and go through the list and call your members and make certain that they're doing okay.
Now, brothers, your lodge officers have access to the lodge portal, and inside that portal are many great resources that you can use to keep in contact with your members, such as running address lists, running phone lists, and sending blast emails. And remember that anytime you engage a member, do yourself, your lodge, your secretary, and even the Grand Lodge a favor by updating information from the member. Address changes, their spouses' names, and emails are extremely important to make sure that we keep the information flowing to each other.
That's a good idea, Randy. Once we've gotten through the winter and into the spring, lodges should look at having some sort of social event to bring their members back out and together. You know, a cookout or a pitch-in would be a good idea. Bring a guest speaker and encourage lodge members to attend. If it isn't a speaker on a Masonic topic, you could even attract and invite non-members and spouses.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Anytime we can get together and, you know, stay socially distanced for as long as we need to, but get together and commune with our brothers and our families is another great way of keeping members engaged.
Yep. So Randy, this has been a slow year with membership. The closing of the lodges for the spring, the lower activity, degree work this fall has surely been slow. What have you seen?
Well, from my own standpoint of traveling to lodges and also from working in the Grand Lodge offices, it appears that we're going to raise around 500 Master Masons. And while that's definitely a lot lower number, it's still encouraging that we have 500 new brothers within the fraternity. There are several entered apprentices and fellow crafts in the pipe, but because of lodges not feeling comfortable enough to open right now and having degree work backed up, membership is always an importance, but even more so now. It's extremely important to keep the entered apprentices and fellow crafts engaged while they're waiting for their degree work, and to keep membership flowing. Keep talking about membership, keep talking about the great aspects of our fraternity. Next year is going to be really important, especially for some of our lodges that just haven't been able to get back to work.
I agree, Randy. You know, especially keep talking to those prospects and those members that you, or those men that you have elected. While our Master Masons are down in 2020, I think there are a lot of men out there that are looking for the things that we have, Randy. It is time for us to take advantage of our opportunities. It is time for lodges to become intentional about membership. We need to be out in the community, being involved, making certain people know that we are there and show what we are about.
You know, oftentimes we fall into the trap of waiting for men to ask to join the fraternity. You know, if you have somebody that shows a little interest, or that you might even think is interested in becoming a Freemason, or that you personally think would be a great Freemason, you don't have to wait for them to ask. Talk to them about the fraternity. Just simply let them know, you know, brother, if this is something you're interested in, all you have to do is ask me. Open up the communication. Talk to Masonry around those people that you respect, that you like, that you think would be great members. They're everywhere. They're in your family, they're in your churches, they're in your workplace, in your clubs, your bowling leagues, your hunting groups and your fishing groups. There's great men everywhere. Obviously, we all want to hang around with great men, and we know a lot of them that aren't Masons, and just open up the conversation with them. It's amazing what will happen.
That's great, Randy. You know, some things that lodges should be starting to do right now to get ready for the spring. They should start by setting membership goals. If you don't have a goal You can't measure how you're doing. A study was done by the York Rite a few years ago on membership in the Grand Lodge. And we showed that we were losing members at a rate of 6.63% per year, with deaths at 3.29%. We would suggest that the lodges set an initial goal of 5% of your beginning of the year membership. So for example, if you have 100 members in your lodge today, set a goal of 5 new members for 2021. If you have 200 in your lodge, set a goal of 10 new members. If you're reaching that goal already, bump your goal. Go to 7.5, go to 10%. Those are the things that we need to do. If every lodge focuses on setting a membership goal and they reach that membership goal, we may go from having an annual decrease in members in the Grand Lodge to actually having an increase in members. What other things should lodges do, Randy?
Well, there's a lot of things you can do, and I just want to say with goals, I personally work very well when I set a goal for myself, and it gives the lodge something to drive for. A lot of people are just driven when they have a direction, a point to go to. So please set goals within your lodge. Make them realistic and maybe push them up 1 or 2, really to get people to drive to the point. Another important aspect of membership is mentoring. What do we do with this new brother once we have him? Now, most people think of mentoring as becoming proficient, and that is a big part of joining lodge, is becoming proficient. Not knowing it 100% letter perfect, but having a proficiency and an understanding of what it means to be a Mason and to practice the art of Freemasonry. But mentoring is so much more than just learning the work. It's how we should act out in public, how we should act when we visit other lodges, being someone that can answer questions of this new Master Mason. I've even taken brothers that were in college to buy their first suit because they weren't sure how to buy a suit and a coat and things to match and how it should be worn. Not that I'm any kind of fashionista or anything, but they needed that kind of help, and that's what I offered to them. So mentoring could be many different aspects of practicing the art of Freemasonry. If you keep them engaged, bringing them to lodge, inviting them to other lodges and to other Masonic functions, that's all part of mentoring. It's not just about the degree work.
That's right, Randy. Next, the lodge should look at putting together a membership committee. This would consist of 5 to 9 members who are focused on growing the membership in a lodge. Randy, who do you think should probably be on that committee?
Well, like with most committees, there should be a representation of your line officers, maybe a trustee, and then general members, especially members that are good at sales, or more importantly, that have a love for the fraternity, that can sit and talk about the fraternity and answer some of the basic questions prospective members might have. Just somebody that has a desire to grow this great fraternity and to grow their lodge.
I agree, Randy. And another person that would be helpful would be somebody that's connected in the community, whether it be someone that's involved locally. That way they know other people in the community that would make good Masons. The Internet Inquiry Committee currently refers inquiries to the Worshipful Master and Secretary in the lodge. These are 2 guys that are really pretty busy. These are guys that are pretty busy with their duties in the lodge. We would like to recommend that you take one of the guys that is in on your membership committee and assign him as your Internet Inquiry contact for the Internet Inquiry Committee. Committees shouldn't just be the ones to recruit members. They should be out there encouraging the other members of the lodge to recruit members. However, they should hold some open houses and some different events. What kind of things have you seen work in your background, Randy?
Well, Gary, those are all great points. I want to capture something on the Internet Inquiry Committee. Your lodge secretary is extremely busy, as you know, because you're a lodge secretary.
Yes.
And I have the pleasure of working with all the lodge secretaries across the state of Indiana. And these guys are busy helping to run your lodge and give good advice and take care of all the paperwork. They really don't have time to deal with the internet inquiries. That's a very important aspect of this fraternity. And sadly, a lot of those inquiries get sent out and they just get thrown to the side. It's very important to follow up on the internet inquiries we get a lot of great members from those. As a matter of fact, my lodge just had a targeted open house, which I'm going to talk about in just a second. And one of the ones we invited was one of our internet inquiries. I met him at the lodge the other afternoon with his initiation fee check and his petition. He's extremely excited.
Excellent.
So that's the great things that can happen when you actually follow up with somebody. And not all of them are going to work out, but you know, if you get a percentage of those internet inquiries to join the fraternity, it's a great thing. But one thing a lot of lodges are doing successfully, and what our membership liaisons are going out to lodges and talking about, is doing a targeted open house. Like you said earlier, that we want to find people within the community that are great men and great Masons, and we all know those kind of people. So why don't we target the kind of people that we want in our lodge? The guy that we trust to work on our car, the guy that we trust to do our finances or works at our bank, the guy that we trust that takes the collection up at our church. We all know people like that. And simply say, hey, I belong to this great organization and I'd like to share it with you. We're going to have a little dinner and have a little tour of the lodge and just simply talk to you about Freemasonry and see if it's something you might be interested in. Well, if you're like me, I don't like to turn down a free dinner. So, you know, it's always a great social thing to have dinner. So bring them in for a meal, have a couple of the guys, give them a tour of the lodge, and just talk to them about Freemasonry. We had 7 show up at our last one last week. I talked about the Internet Inquiry Committee. 4 of the 7 took petitions, and 1 of them wanted to go home and rightfully so discuss it with these ladies. So it's a great, successful tool. Other ways to get involved is go to your city functions, your fairs, your festivals. Set up a booth, give away free water. It doesn't always have to be about selling things and making money. Just go out and talk to people. Volunteer at different community functions. Pick up trash on the street. You know, if you see a need in your community, I know we had a fire downtown at our lodge. The first thing we did was sent guys to the lodge. We opened up the doors, fired up the coffee pots, and let the fire department use that as a rescue station. There's all different kind of ways that you can engage the community, and you're only limited to your own imagination.
That's great, Randy. You know, the committee should also look at ways to promote Freemasonry within the community. You know, the Scottish Rite Northern Masonic jurisdictions put together their Path Forward advertising program with not just a Mason theme. I put together a window cling and a banner stand with a banner from that program. These items are available on the member portal and will be discussed later in one of the future segments of today's event. Grand Lodge has put together a number of tools, Randy, for lodges can use for membership. In addition to the usual petition process, Grand Lodge created an invitation to petition process. Here, 3 members get together and recommend a man to become a Mason. These 3 members then serve as the investigating committee and come back at the next stated meeting and report on the man. He's then put up for a vote, and if elected, he then only has to turn in a petition, and he's already ready to move forward with his degree work. So I think that's a good way. You know, at that point, the lodge can just schedule the degree work. What other programs do we have, Randy?
Well, we've got a couple of good programs, and remember that these are tools. These are options that you can use, and a lot of lodges are using them successfully, especially right now after we opened lodges back up for degree work. A lot of lodges pounced on the idea of doing the 5 candidate program, which means you can have up to 5 candidates at a time to take their EA degree, or 5 candidates at a time to take their fellowcraft degree, and with a little adjustment, 5 candidates at a time to take their Master Mason degree. It's a great way to get the brothers through the degrees and get them backlogged. And also, one of the neat things about the 5 candidate program is if those 5 guys go through a couple of the degrees together, you can just see those brothers bond as they take their degrees, and it's just an extra bonus to that, to be able to share that experience with other people. The other program is, of course, the one-day classes, and with a little bit of organization and a lot of communication, these are very successful ways to bring new members into the fraternity, especially your brothers that have a very busy work schedule. A lot of guys that are self-employed or that work in law enforcement or emergency services, that just don't have a very free schedule. This is an excellent opportunity to bring those brothers in and to help lodges around your area that can't quite get the degree work off in a timely manner, that they can come and finish up a couple of brothers that they have in waiting.
Yes, Randy, and one of the things I think members should understand is that proficiency is not necessarily being able to give back the work lecture. So.
That's true. Brothers of Masonic fraternity, the Masonic Lodge's purpose is to make Masons. I love the ritual, and Gary loves the ritual. Between us, we can probably do just about any lecture and any questions and answers and all, because we love it. Some guys love the fraternity, but they understand the ritual, but giving it just isn't their thing. But they're great Masons. They're great Masons in their homes, they're great Masons in their families, in their places of work, and in their lodge. So a Masonic Lodge, its purpose is to make Masons. And that's one of my favorite things, and I know you're a membership guy, as I have such a deep love for this fraternity, as I know that you do in the 20-some years that we've known each other, that nothing is more satisfying than getting a petition signed and watching that brother take his degree work and process through the degrees and just see what kind of a great Mason he can be. The master of my lodge this year is a brother that I signed his petition some 20 years ago, and it's just a very satisfying thing to grow your lodge and grow this great fraternity.
That's right, Randy. So to summarize, our lodges should start making plans to be more active as the pandemic fades away. Take this time to put together your membership committee and start working on membership recruitment and retention strategies. Put together an education program to develop your lodge mentors. Lodges should look towards using the Path Forward materials.
That's right. Get members for you, get members for your lodge, get members for your community, and get members for this great fraternity.
That's right. Thank you, and have a good day.
Home Health Services by Compass Park is committed to providing outstanding home care services for homebound clients of all ages. Our registered nurses coordinate with your caregivers and physicians to develop an individualized plan to help you maintain independence at home. We have a complete team of registered nurses, physicians, certified home health aides, and therapists. From skilled nursing services, assessments, and medication management to meal prep and housekeeping, let us assist you. Home Health Services by Compass Park, building relationships and building independence.
Good afternoon, brethren. John Bridegroom here, Public Relations and Marketing Director. And while I know we haven't been able to get together very much this past year, I can assure you that the Grand Lodge Public Relations and Marketing Committee has been hard at work on several projects. A few of these are the Grand Lodge Brand Book, which is intended to assist local lodges on how to use our logos, fonts, and colors on their own marketing materials, such as business cards, flyers, or even signage for their lodges, in order to help give a more unified look to Freemasonry throughout the state of Indiana. In addition to this, we also have the Path Forward materials, which were created by the Scottish Rite Northern Masonic jurisdiction for use by Grand Lodges. Now, we've had these materials specifically branded for the Grand Lodge of Indiana, and they are available for you on the member and lodge portals online. Our Assistant Director, Andrew Steffens, has put together a short video to show lodges how to use these materials and how to take them from the portal, download them, and get them to either a local printer or an online printer for your use.
Thank you, John, and thank you, brothers, for your continued commitment to this wonderful fraternity. I would like to quickly take a moment to thank all of those brothers who have volunteered to be part of this year's PR and Marketing Committee, including Chris Hodap, our co-chair. Brothers watching today, I understand how challenging it can be to take in Founders Day away from each other, but I truly appreciate your dedication to the craft. The PR and marketing presentation is comprised of 3 parts, the first being the introduction. You are in that now. The second goes over our designs. What you are listening to today is a shortened overview of our brand book, as John discussed. This part of the presentation has been pre-recorded and will be used in other settings moving forward, so I apologize for the dual introduction. While this is the short brand lecture, there is also a longer brand lecture for those of you who prefer longer second sections. The final part will go over where you can find these tools and how you can take these tools and put them in action in your lodge and in your community. Before we begin, it is important that you understand that you must have a login to the members portal. While we have decided to make some of the information more easily available on our marketing microsite, INGLmarketing.com, we have disabled the page from showing up in search results, so you can say it is a bit of a secret. The final thing I ask of you, brothers, is please don't kill the designers or the architect. With that, off we go.
Second appropriate use is the logo mark with the slogan, "Not just a man, a mason," under. And finally, it is acceptable to use only the mark. This mark represents the coming together of the Not Just a Man, a Mason campaign and the existing Grand Lodge of Indiana square and compass mark. When in doubt, use a version of this logo. The Indiana public mark should be used when identifying an activity specific to Freemasonry in Indiana in a public space that is highly likely to be viewed by non-Masons outside the state of Indiana. This includes the website and social media. Single color logos may be presented in any of the approved logo colors discussed later in this program. The Grand Lodge of Indiana has adopted the Scottish Rite and Northern Masonic jurisdiction's color palette for use with our marketing materials. In general, the primary color, Pantone 7659C, is reserved for use with the Grand Lodge, while Pantone 2118C is for use with lodges. Feel free to use any of the other secondary colors to help accentuate your marketing materials. On behalf of the entire Grand Lodge Marketing and PR Committee, I'd like to thank you for taking this time to learn about how to use our new logo mark. While we don't expect you to have it pixel perfect all the time, we hope that you try your best and that you feel free to ask us questions if you need to. It is one of our goals to begin providing the craft a template library so that you are not starting at ground zero each and every time you need to make a flyer or a brochure. Also, we are not the logo police. It is not our intention to go out and say, you did this wrong, you need to get rid of it. Do your best, as we know that all of the brothers throughout the state do. And I am sure that we will continue to strengthen the brand identity of Indiana Freemasons for the next number of years. Thank you.
Wow, I hope all of you found that as exciting as I did and are looking forward to putting that information into action. And for that, we come to part 3. The basic files are available on the Indiana Freemasons member portal. I'm going to go through a quick refresher of how to access the members portal. From IndianaFreemasons.com, scroll to the bottom of the screen and click the member portal button. If you have set up your account, click the green login button. If you have not, or you have forgotten your password, click the appropriate option. If you are having issues logging into your account, please send an email or call the Grand Secretary's office during their usual working hours. When you are logged in, the navigation bar will appear across the top of the screen under the logo header. Each time you log in, please get in the habit of clicking on the My Information tab and checking to see if all of your personal information, including the best email address, is correct in the portal. Now, more than ever, our ability to reach people through multiple means is quite important. As we continue with our journey to download Path Forward information today, click on the Resources menu at the top of your screen and scroll down until you find Browse Category: Programs and click on that option. From here, scroll down until you see the content beginning with Path Forward Market Materials. As you click into each of these sections, you will find commercial print files for different styles of banners and posters, along with content that is ready for use on social media. These social media icons are great for adding to events and posts during open house activities for your lodge. As a side note, if your lodge is interested in setting up a Facebook page, please feel free to reach out to the PR and Marketing Committee at the contact information provided at the end of this presentation. We are working towards having a link to the online print store added to this list by the time Founders Day arrives. If it is not there yet, you can reach it at bit.ly/shopingl or from the INGL marketing microsite. In addition to the files available on the members portal, we have launched INGLmarketing.com. This site is geared toward individuals who volunteer as or were chosen at the Master's will and pleasure as the Lodge's marketing coordinator. What? You don't have a marketing coordinator? Worshipful Masters out there, try that will and pleasure thing. Give them access to the Lodge's Facebook page. Ask them to put every meeting date and every public event on the Facebook page. Then point them to the INGLmarketing.com website. More importantly, give them a budget. It could be just a couple of $100s, but give them something to work with. Okay, back to the slide. This site is geared toward your lodge's marketing coordinator. It has marketing templates that are 90% of the way ready to use, the full brand book, all of the logo marks, and ways to contact the Grand Lodge Marketing Committee. From here, they can request support for creating a template if we don't have one already, and even flag public events or events that would have broad interest to the crafts so we can share them more broadly on the Indiana Grand Lodge social media pages. Quick note, if you are asked for a login on this site, this is not your INGL members site credential. This is separate, and we suggest using either Google or Facebook for single sign-on so you don't have one more login to manage. This helps us understand who is using the site, and it gives us some ability to reach out if necessary. Finally, what I think is the coolest thing we've done in the past 6 months, we have partnered with Vistaprint, an online print company, to set up an online store for Indiana Grand Lodge marketing materials. This allows your PR and marketing team to do the legwork on creating the banners, posters, handbills, polo shirts, coffee mugs, etc. And your lodge just needs to go in, put what you want in the cart, buy it with your lodge funds, and it will be mailed directly to you. We also receive 15% off Vistaprint's public costs, and for orders over $50, we get free shipping. In the future, we hope to expand our store to include things that can be easily customized to call out your lodge's name on things like t-shirts, polo shirts, business cards. This isn't here now, but hopefully one day soon. Thank you again, brothers, for being interested in building better awareness of Freemasonry in Indiana. If you need to contact us, you can ask public questions on the Indiana Freemasons Facebook group, private message us on the Indiana Grand Lodge Facebook page, or email John at pr@ingrandlodge.org.
We're looking for a new home, and for us, location. So we decided to come to Franklin for lunch because my husband and I love little small college towns. And we had lunch. Then we decided to drive through the campus and check it out. And then we saw that the campus park was right next door. So we drove through there, and it was beautiful, the landscaping and open. And I said, well, I need to go to the bathroom. So we stopped at the community center, and we went in to use the restroom, and it was like a luxury hotel. They immediately gave us a short tour, and we were at that time interested in a house. But then they showed us these new luxury apartments that they were building, and that's what sold us because they were luxury, they were brand new, they have underground parking. So that's how we made our decision to come to Compass Park. We love the carefree living that it offers. the social, all the walking to downtown. They have a beautiful downtown area with the courthouse square. They have the farmers market, all kinds of activities and festivals. The other big plus for the luxury apartments is every apartment has a balcony, and you have the choice of facing the beautiful waterfront circle out front or Young's Creek. And we chose one with a balcony facing Young's Creek, and we love to be outdoors, so that's another big plus.
I'd like now to introduce David Hosler with his presentation of One Body, Many Members.
Have you ever heard the fable of many parts, one body? This allegory is quite ancient, but is still relevant even today. This fable was first found in the 2nd millennium BC on a piece of Egyptian papyrus. Later, a Roman named Agrippa Menenius Lenatus told this fable to soldiers during a succession of plebs. In this fable, Agrippa spoke of the parts of the body and how each part served a purpose for the function of the body. In this story, the rest of the body thought the stomach was getting a free ride and therefore decided to stop nourishing it. Very soon, the rest of the body started to fail due to lack of nourishment. The body parts realized at this time that the stomach did indeed serve a purpose and was needed to function as a whole. Paul the Apostle spoke of this exact fable in his letter to the Corinthians. Paul was a Roman citizen and most likely knew of this story from his early education. In 1 Corinthians chapter 12, verses 14 through 22, Paul writes the following: "The body does not consist of one member but of many. If the foot should say, 'Because I am not a hand, I do not belong to the body,' that would not make it any less a part of the body. And if the ear should say, 'Because I am not an eye, I do not belong to the body,' that would not make it any less a part of the body. If the whole body were an eye, where would be the sense of hearing? If the whole body were an ear, where would be the sense of smell? But as it is, God arranged the members in the body, each one of them, as He chose. If all were a single member, where would be the body? As it is, there are many parts, yet one body. The eye cannot say to the hand, 'I have no need of you,' nor the head to the feet, 'I have no need of you.' On the contrary, the parts of the body that seem to be weaker are indispensable. Think about this allegory in relation to your lodge and the diverse crowd of men you will find there. Within your lodge, you will find strengths and you will find weaknesses in every man. Each man will bring something valuable to our fraternity, and when correctly engaged, his unique abilities will fill a needed niche. As you advance through the chairs in your lodge, understanding the talents and skill sets that each brother brings to the fraternity and how best to utilize them for the success of your lodge is one of the most important leadership skills you can develop. Let's take a moment to go through an example of what happens when you've not taken the time to understand someone's abilities. It's your first time in the East, and you're in charge of setting up the craft list for the upcoming degree. You're excited about this and want to get some newer members involved in the degree work. You ask Brother John if he'd like to perform the charge. John hesitates slightly and then quietly agrees to do so. He doesn't want to disappoint you. In your excitement to try and engage brothers who don't participate in the work, you failed in your duty as a leader, and without realizing it, you set Brother John up for failure, as you will soon find out. The night of the degree comes, and John is nervous during the dinner. He keeps fidgeting with his monitor and rereading the same words over and over. The lodge is opened, and if you were paying attention to him, John looks like he would rather be anywhere but the lodge room. The degree progresses, and when it's time for the charge, you call up the craft, and John slowly approaches the northeast to present the charge. John freezes. John's never even done the answers in the Entered Apprentice Catechism, but you forgot about that. From the sidelines, words and phrases from the charge are offered. John stumbles through a bungled charge and retreats as quickly as he can back to his seat on the sidelines. The candidate has no clue what has just transpired or what he was charged with. The degree concludes with the lectures and the lodge is closed. Brother John quickly slips out the door and debates ever returning. He's embarrassed and avoids attending lodge for a while. We could take this hyperbolic example a step further. Brother John is advanced to the east for no other reason except that he kept showing up. He is now sitting as master of his lodge. He can barely open the lodge without assistance. He stumbles through the closing. When he attempts to perform the work, it is badly butchered. He's lacking the skills required. He's unprepared, and we've allowed this to happen. We've made him a master in name only. He will have a bad year in the East, and it's our fault. Being unprepared and having no plan, the lodge as a whole suffers. Meetings devolve as there is no control of the craft. Lacking the skills needed to perform the degrees, the degree work is outsourced from the East. With no leadership, there is confusion in the temple. Brothers, I use these examples because I've seen these situations play out in lodges. Within these examples, how did we set Brother John up for failure? We failed him by not getting to know him and understanding what his strengths and weaknesses are as a member of this fraternity. We also failed him by not coaching or mentoring him, but that's a discussion for another day. Our example brother embodies many of the qualities we as Masons are charged with upholding, strive for, and admire. His few weaknesses pale in comparison to the strengths he brings to the fraternity. Brothers like John are vital to the well-being of a lodge, but only when their talents are realized and utilized correctly. He might never be a ritualist, but he is the first to answer a call when a brother is in distress. He shows up to the lodge building early to turn on the heat in the winter. He's the member who can build a wheelchair ramp for an elderly brother or his widow. And he's the guy who will drive a few hours at the drop of a hat if someone needs a ride. He might not be suited for certain lodge leadership roles or degree work, and to put him into such situations is doing both him and the lodge a disservice. In thinking of our lodge as a body, we can imagine John and brothers like him as the hands, because these types of brothers don't shy away from using them to accomplish tasks for the fraternity. These brothers are why our lodges have fresh coats of paint, and the floors are cleaned before the temple is used. A lodge of Masons will fall flat on its face when it forgets that the feet and legs are just as important as the head and hands. Brethren, Masonic legend tells us that there were thousands of men involved in the building of King Solomon's temple. Each of these men had special skills that were utilized in the operative art of building the original temple. Each of these men were overseen by leaders. The overseers received their orders from a certain master builder with whom we're all familiar with. These men employed in the building of the temple are no different than the men in our lodges who practice the speculative art of Freemasonry. They all encompass the body of our gentle art, and each man is just as valuable in the next in his own unique way. As a leader in your lodge, as you craft your designs upon the truss board, you assign each of the craft a role that complements his abilities and sets him up for success. Remember that harmony is the strength and support of a lodge, so when all parts of the body work together in unison for the benefit of the fraternity, we see Freemasonry truly happen.
Hi, I'm Eric Vermeulen from the Indiana Masonic Home Foundation. Many of us provide donations to the Indiana Masonic Home Foundation because of the great level of care that the staff provide for the residents there. And there are so many ways to help. By joining the Corinthian Society, you can provide a legacy that will last well beyond your time on this earth. You can help ensure the future of Compass Park and its residents through your generous bequest. Our Masonic Home Foundation development officers, Megan Schmidt and Steve Sonnefrank, will be eager to speak with you, so please contact our office and set up a time to talk with them. We appreciate your support. Thanks so much.
I'm Greg Jordan with your Grand Lodge Scholarship Board. The Scholarship Board has two primary funds for which we're responsible. One is the Grand Lodge Scholarship Fund, and the other is the Ralph W. Seawright Trust, a donation, a rather large and generous donation made by the late brother Ralph Seawright. Since 1989, Indiana Freemasons have awarded almost 11,000 scholarships for about $12.5 million. I just want to give you a sense of how your support over the years has helped our students in Indiana. Until several years ago, the funds had different requirements for each of them, but the board worked a few years ago to try to consolidate the requirements so that they have the same requirements for both, and we don't have as much bureaucracy to work through. The changes we made also removed some restrictions we had. We used to have a restriction that you couldn't be more than 24 years of age before you applied. We eliminated that restriction. We also now have clarified that a Master Mason can apply for a scholarship on his own. This makes the process of applying and making determinations and awarding scholarships much less complicated. For those of you, and I know there are several of you watching who have been involved with your lodges for years, I just wanted to remind you that we recently implemented a new online scholarship application process. Previous to the online process, it was rather cumbersome. We had students who had to fill out an application. Well, first of all, we had to print and mail or deliver expensive printed products to lodges, and then the lodges had to distribute their applications, and then the students had to fill out the applications, and then the lodge had to get the application and sign certifications and get them to people who had to get them to other people, and it was just a little complicated. So with the implementation of the online application, we have significantly reduced expenses. We have increased the amount of time a student can have to fill out an application. And that's the primary thing I want to talk to you about today, is to kind of give you an idea of how that application process works. We have two primary types of applicants. We have the Master Mason, as I mentioned earlier, and you do not have to have a sponsor, obviously, to be an applicant if you are a Master Mason. And that's probably a very small percentage of our applicants, but we're getting more each year, and we're very delighted to know that this program is able to benefit our Master Masons and young people who we have determined will become Master Masons eventually, and hopefully this program is a kind of a boost for that. So the process that you would follow is, if you're a Master Mason, you can go to your Grand Lodge member portal, log in, and at the top of the screen there is a blue bar on which to click, and it will take you directly to the application. As I said, the majority of our applicants are not Masons, so they must have a sponsor. The sponsor can be a father, a stepfather, or a grandfather. And to get to the application for those applicants, they would go to the Grand Lodge main page. And at the top of the page, there are a number of options. They would pick on the option that says charity. And when they, I guess you just hover your mouse over it. When you hover your mouse over it, the charity is the first option. You click on that and it'll take you to a page about the Grand Lodge Scholarship Board. And near the bottom of the page, before you get to a list of colleges, will tell you when the applications are available, and we hope that that will be early January through the end of March when applicants can submit their application. They will find the link to take them to the place where they will start the application process. And this is very important to note. When they are starting the process, they need to have certain information about their sponsor so that they can get validated or authenticated to make sure that the sponsor is a member in good standing. So they will have to enter, sorry, I got my notes here, they'll have to enter the sponsor's lodge member number, they'll have to enter the sponsor's last name, the sponsor's date of birth, and then it's going to ask for the applicant's cell phone number. And that's very important to make sure that the applicant uses their cell phone number, because that's going to be a part of the process when they're working on their application. We'll be sending them a validation code to get to that application. The application process is very simple. It ought to take probably less than 30 minutes for the applicant to fill out the application. Now, there are some students who fill out applications each year. They submit their applications, and we encourage that. I want to remind the viewers that the applicant must be a full-time student. The applicant must be applying to a college or a university in Indiana, and the applicant must, and by full-time student I want to clarify that's 12 credit hours or more, and the applicant must be working on an undergraduate degree. We have some inquiries about different kind of scenarios, and those are the primary things that an applicant needs to be aware of. But once they get to the application, then they'll just need to list some information about themselves, including the university they're planning to attend, what they're planning to study. If they're a high school senior preparing to become a college freshman, we'll get a little bit of information about their college career. We'll ask for some information about some of the awards, civic involvement, things that they've done. Perhaps they've been a DMLA or a Job's Daughter or a Rainbow Girl. Those are the kinds of things that the board is interested in, and obviously we'll need to get a copy of their latest transcript. So if they're a high school senior, we'll need their latest high school transcript. If they're already enrolled in college and have attended classes before in college, we'll need their latest college transcript. So once all of that information is in the system, in the application, then the student has a chance to save that. They can review it later, they can go back to it. But at some point, they need to submit that application. And once they have submitted it, then the application is on its way and ready for the review by the scholarship board. And the board will meet to review all of the applications. We've had, the last several years, about 450 applications submitted each year. And usually we have about 400 applications that are scholarships, rather, that are awarded. So once that process is done, once they've submitted it, then we will notify the students that the application has been submitted. It actually will appear at the top of their application so that they will see that the application was successfully submitted. And we'll also send an automated email to the lodge secretary and the worshipful master to inform them that an application for the student has been submitted. And that gives the lodge officers both knowledge that it's been done, but also an opportunity to respond if they have any questions or concerns about that student's ability to be going on to college, which rarely we get, and we're delighted that the lodges are so supportive of their students. We do ask that you maybe kind of nudge the students and remind them to check their email, especially their junk and their spam folders. We get a number of inquiries from students who say they haven't heard from anybody, and then when we remind them to check their junk or spam folder, then they say, oh yes, there it is. So they will get a reminder, or they will get a notification probably in early June telling them what the decision of the board is, how it affects them. So please, one of the things you can do most to help the scholarship process is to make sure that students who are either Masons in your lodge or who are children of your members are aware of the process. They know the timeline. They can get their applications filled out and submitted on time, and then support them by making sure that they check their emails and that they are aware of when the scholarship awards are given, that they'll know what their status is on that. These scholarships are made payable to the school, not to the student, but the scholarship checks are sent to the student for them to give to the school. That is sometimes something that's a little confusing to the students. We need to make the check payable to the school, but we oftentimes don't have all the information that the school needs. So the student is best equipped to do that with their student ID or their social security number. So that will be mailed to them probably in the summer. If we're able to gather next summer, which we hope we can, we will be able to present them in person. We've had a history of the Grand Master being able to present the scholarship checks directly to the students, and that's always a highlight because the students get to meet some of the Grand Lodge leadership and get to understand a little bit more about Masonry. One of the things that I'd like to emphasize for you is, you've been very supportive in the past of getting your students aware of this and making sure that they fill out their applications. But we need to remember that these funds are not infinite. We can always use more contributions. Each member makes a contribution in part through their dues, but if you have an opportunity to make a donation in some larger form that will help increase the corpus so that we have a larger amount of interest to donate for these scholarships, we would greatly appreciate it. So I want to thank you for taking the time to learn a little bit more about the scholarship program. I especially want to thank you for promoting the scholarship program to your students, and I want to thank all Indiana Freemasons for their support of the Grand Lodge Scholarship Board program.
What can $1 a day do? Well, at the Indiana Masonic Home at Compass Park, quite a lot. By participating in our 365 program, not only will you provide services to the residents at the Masonic Home on a daily basis, but you will also participate in our 365 program, which will earn you this handsome pin. In 2020, it will take $239 to equal the buying power of a gold card back when we began the program in 1985. So through your added donation, you can help ensure the residents of Compass Park have all the resources they need. Please give. Thanks very much.
Welcome back. We're here to the Masonic Library and Museum. Our third law that we will be doing is the law of priorities. Tim, what should our audience be able to take away from this law?
Gary, Dr. Maxwell discusses how leaders who understand that activity is not necessarily accomplishment, and they also understand that we should not simply do for the sake of doing. Busyness does not equal productivity, and activity does not equal accomplishment. Therefore, leaders must think and ahead several steps. They must prioritize in order to be successful and to schedule activities ahead of time that will benefit the lodge and the craft. Here, we see Dr. Maxwell explain more on the law of priorities.
Law number 17, the law of priorities. The law of priorities says that leaders understand that activity is not necessarily accomplishment. So let's talk about that for a moment. Activity is not necessarily accomplishment. Some of these laws I do better on than others, and there are some laws that I excel more than others. I want to just say that probably of the 21 laws, this is my best law. I really do understand the law of priorities. And so let me give you a little bit of background. I'm working on a business degree in Indiana back in 1971, 72 in college. And I read in a textbook about the Pareto principle. A guy named Alfredo Pareto. It was the first time that I ever was introduced to what is known sometimes as the 80-20 principle. The first time that I've ever was introduced to it, and basically Pareto taught in that one paragraph in that book about priorities. And I remember reading that paragraph and saying to myself, this is very important to me. I need to learn priorities the way Pareto taught them. And so I became a student of Pareto. I became a student of priorities. And that was, my goodness, that was well over 30 years ago. And I can tell you that when people look at what little things that I've been able to accomplish, and they come and say, how can you accomplish so much? I can always tell them with great integrity, this law right here, the law of priorities, I have worked on and I have excelled in. So let's look at your notes, because this is a terrific law to teach. I've already got a diagram for you, so let's just look at the diagram for a second. On the left-hand column is priorities. And by the way, since I'm doing some teaching on this, I want you to put a slice there, and I want you to also put the word people. because I'm going to teach you priorities, but I'm also going to teach you how to prioritize your people in about 5 minutes. So, but for now, the left-hand column is priorities, and the right-hand column is production, and it pretty well explains itself. Here's what Pareto says. Pareto says that if you have 10 things to do, and you prioritize those 10 things correctly, if you only do 2 of them, but you do the top 2, you're going to get an 80% return on everything you need in your life. It's very obvious. You do 2 things, you go to the production side, 80% return. That's huge. Pareto goes on and says, let's say instead of doing the top 2 things, you do the bottom 8. You ignore the top 2. The most important things you ignore, and you do the bottom 8. Here's what Pareto says. If you do the bottom 8, if you go to the production side, you can see you're only going to have a 20% return. That's why it's sometimes called the 80-20 principle or the 20-80 principle. It's really talking about how to prioritize your life. And Pareto says if you prioritize your life correctly, if you do just the 2 things out of 10 that you need to do, the most important 2, 80% of everything you want in your business, I can tell you this works in your family. If you prioritize your family time right, 80% of everything you need in your family, it's going to happen if you understand how to work the top 20%. What I have found is most people don't understand the 20-80 principle, and so therefore they don't put the time, energy, and effort in the top 20%, so therefore they don't get the return. Now, this is a great principle, but there are 3 questions, priority questions, that you need to ask yourself, that I need to ask myself, that helps me to establish this top 20%. Question number 1, requirement. I've got to ask myself, what is required of me? In other words, I've got to look at my job. I've got to look at my company, my organization, the one that I work for. There are certain job descriptions. There are certain requirements of the job. And I've got to basically say, okay, what do I have to do? Because whatever I have to do, I have to do it. If I don't do those, I'm fired. So it's got to be a priority. True? So I've got to ask what's required of me. The second word is return. I've got to look at all the things I do, and I have to ask myself this question, what gives me the greatest return? The third word is reward. I have to ask myself the question, what gives me the greatest reward? Now, those 3 questions I have found to be huge in understanding the 20-80 principle. But Alfredo Pareto says that if you prioritize your life correctly and you do the top 20%, you get an 80% return. And on that top 20%, I have to have those 3 R's. What's required of me, what gives me the highest return, and what gives me the greatest reward. See, I've got to ask the requirement question because if I don't do that, well, then I'm out of a job. I've got to ask the return job question because if I don't do that well, I'm not going to produce. And I've got to ask the reward job because if I don't like what I'm doing and I continually do it, it's only a matter of time till I'll quit. Requirement, return, reward. Let me illustrate it. I only have 4 things that I have to do. In fact, when I tell people that I only have 4 priorities, they look at me and they just kind of look at me and say, what do you mean you only do 4 things? What I mean is I only do 4 things. And they say, well, no, I mean, don't you do other things? No, read my lips. Now, the reason I only do 4 things is a lot of reasons. One is I understand priorities. Number 2 is I'm kind of worthless in most things in life. It's just a gift, so it's not yours, so don't worry about it. Okay. But worthless I am. But the 4 things I do very well. And my whole team understands this. And they do everything around me so that I can stay focused on these 4 areas because these 4 areas bring a huge return to me and to my companies that I have. So let me give you the 4 things. I'm only giving you these 4, not because these are going to be your 4, because they're not going to be. But you're going to have to go through the process, which literally took me months to go through, until you can settle in what your strengths are, what you need to be spending your time with. My 4 priorities, very simple. Number 1 is leadership. I lead well, so I spend a lot of time leading. It's a gift, and I know it. Number 2 is communication. I do it almost every day. I speak places, I lecture, I teach. I do a lot of communication. Why? Because it's a strength. The third is create or /write. I spend a lot of time creative thinking. I spend a lot of time in writing. Again, why? Because it's a strength of mine. I love to write books so that I can add value to people that I'll probably never meet. And the 4th area is in networking or relationships. Now, those are the 4 things I do. I either lead, communicate, create, or relate with other people. Those are the 4 things. I don't do anything else. You say, John, why don't you do anything else? Because I'm not any good at anything else. You've got to play to your strengths, not to your weaknesses. It's very important for you to understand. Listen to me carefully. People don't pay for average. They haven't paid for average in your life. They're not going to pay for average in my life. People don't pay for average. So quit trying to be average. Find out what you do well. Stay to your strengths, because that's the ace. That's what's going to bring you home. Now, these 4 areas, these are the 4 areas I stay in. I don't do anything else. Now, I have to have a lot of things done, so I have players around me that they complete me, and they do things for me that are huge on the team that are vitally important. Now, I'm not saying these are the only 4 important things. I'm just saying, for me, these are the 4 things that I do, and these are my 4 top priorities. These give me the greatest return. These give me the greatest reward. You see, what Pareto is teaching you and me are the following lessons. He's teaching us, first of all, it's not how hard you work, it's how smart you work. He's teaching us that it's not how much time you put in the job, it's how you prioritize the job to be effective in it. He's teaching us things such as organize or agonize. In other words, get your act together and get organized, or you're going to always be behind the 8 ball and you're going to be agonizing because you're trying to always catch up. He's saying things such as choose or lose. Either you choose your priorities or you'll lose your priorities to somebody else that will choose them for you. The question is not will your calendar be full. The question is who will fill your calendar. He's saying things like evaluate or stalemate. Evaluate your priorities on a consistent base, or if you don't, you're going to plateau, you're going to stalemate before long. Now, before I close this incredible law of priorities, let's go back to the diagram one more time. I want you to, instead of looking at priorities on the left-hand column, I want you to look at people. I wish I had 30 minutes to teach this part of the lesson. I'll try to do it in 30 seconds. If you have 10 people in your organization, or let's say you have 100 and each number represents 10, here's what Pareto says. If you have 100 people in your organization, if you prioritize them according to effectiveness in your company, 20 of those 100 people would be giving you 80% return on everything you need in your organization. And the other 80 would be giving you a 20% return. And what Pareto would be saying to you and me as leaders is, you better prioritize your people. And what he would be saying is, once you prioritize them according to effectiveness, here's what Pareto would say is, he would say, spend 80% of your time with the top 20% of your people, because that's where the return is. Let me tell you what our biggest mistake is as leaders. I see it happening all the time. Instead of spending 80% of our time with our top 20%, do you know who we spend 80% of our time with? The bottom 20%. Because they've got questions and they want help and they've got an owie and oh, it's tough. We say, well, the top 20%, they don't need my time. The bottom 20%, they need your time. Listen. You've got to decide whether you're going to be a counselor or an equipper. If you're a counselor, you're going to work with the bottom 20%. If you're an equipper, you're going to work with the top 20%. If you're a counselor, you're going to work on the weaknesses of people. If you're an equipper, you're going to work on the strengths of people. And I'll discuss that in another law coming up. Well, the law of priorities is absolutely huge. Basically, Pareto says, get your act together. Prioritize your life, prioritize your people, prioritize your time, and give 80% of the time to the top 20%, you'll get a huge return.
Welcome back. We're again here in the Masonic Library and Museum in front of the display of the Masonic symbols. Tim, would you mind explaining the ideas that we were just taught?
Gary, I'd be happy to. Brethren, leadership has nothing to do with comfort and everything to do with progress. And sometimes it helps for a leader to get out of his comfort zone, but he still needs to stay within his strength zone. Now, in the law of priorities, we learn that there are 3 R's that are fundamental to this law. Those 3 R's are what is required, what gives the greatest return, and what brings the greatest reward.
Tim, this law really resonated with me. You know, I see so many people who don't set their priorities correctly. Tell me how this law could be used within the lodge.
Gary, in lodges across the state of Indiana, we have various levels of success. Some lodges are exceeding beyond their own measures of membership development, ritual excellence, community involvement. And unfortunately, we find some lodges that can't get enough guys there to open, let alone conduct a degree. The question is, what are the priorities of these different types of lodges? What are the long-term objectives of these lodges, or of your lodge, brethren? As a master and a warden, it's not enough to be successful, for you to be successful. You need to help your brothers be successful. By succeeding together, you will strengthen your lodge. Taking a look into the 3 R's we just discussed, use your working tools and decipher how to best prioritize and lead your lodge to new heights. If you have trouble or questions in any of these areas or engaging with your brethren, utilize your resources available. And we can all help each other grow to become better men, better brothers, and better leaders.
Tim, I want to thank you today for being with us today. I also like to thank Jim Jordan for helping us pick the 3 laws that we used, as well as Richard Lentz, Senior Grand Warden, as we put everything together. So now we return you to the rest of Founders Day.
We hope you've enjoyed this segment of the 21 Irrefutable Laws. And with that, we have a survey that we would like you to fill out. This survey will show us the level of interest for future presentations on the 21 Irrefutable Laws. You've only seen 3. There's a lot more to be shared. So if you could take the time to fill out that survey, that would help us in helping to develop this program for you of leadership in the future. Thank you.
These days, so many of us do our shopping through online retailers like Amazon. Well, have we got a deal for you? If you go to Amazon.com through your regular login and designate the Indiana Masonic Home Foundation as your charity of choice, Amazon will donate 0.5% of the proceeds of your sale directly to the Masonic Home Foundation. It doesn't come out of your pocket, it comes out of Amazon's. It's a great way to support the Masonic Home while at the same time getting all your shopping done in a convenient way. Please register today and help the residents at Compass Park. Thank you.
In loving memory of all of our brethren who have transitioned to the Grand Lodge above in the past year, and whom we could not be with and properly pay our respects due to the circumstances created by the coronavirus pandemic, we would like to honor them with a significant gesture. Therefore, on behalf of all of the brethren of Indiana, and in honor of those who we have lost, the Grand Master and the Grand Officers of the Grand Lodge of Indiana will now present the Masonic Memorial Service.
Right Worshipful Deputy Grand Master, display the 3 great lights. From time immemorial, it has been a custom among the fraternity of free and accepted Masons, upon request, to conduct memorial services for a brother who has been taken by death. In conformity to this ancient usage, we have assembled at this time in the character of Freemasons to offer before the world the last tribute of our affection, and thus to demonstrate in the strongest manner possible the sincerity of our past esteem for our brethren and for our steadfast faith in the principles of our fraternity. That our hearts may be comforted in our sorrow, our chaplain will now read to us a lesson from the Holy Scriptures.
God is our refuge and strength, an ever-present help in trouble. Like a father pitieth his children, so the Lord pitieth them that fear him. For he knoweth our frame, he understandeth that we are dust. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me to the paths of righteousness for thy name's sake. He restoreth my soul. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. For thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Almighty and most gracious Heavenly Father, we humbly and submissively commit the spirit of our departed brethren.
Brethren, friends, and family, the labors of our brother taught him to divest his heart and conscience of the vices and superfluities of life, thereby fitting his soul as a living stone for that spiritual building, that house not made with hands, eternal in the heavens. Strengthened in his labors here by faith in God and encouraged by the belief in immortality, he has sought admission into the celestial lodge above. While this is a moment of serious and solemn thought, yet it should not be heavy with the weight of woe, nor clouded with hopelessness and despair. Facing the reality of death, we should contemplate those great ideas which lie at the heart of our fraternity: God and the immortality of the soul. Our Masonic career was begun with an expression of our faith in God. Step by step, we were taught that in God we live and move and have our being. We learned that He is the great architect of the universe in which there is order, plan, and design. These truths give us strength for our labors and enable us to endure the pains, disappointments, and losses of life with assurance that he that doeth the will of God will abide forever. Our present gathering will be without profit unless it awakens serious reflections and strengthens us with resolutions for the future. May we look away from these sad scenes of frail mortality to the hope that lies beyond the grave. May we be bound ever more strongly in the bonds of brotherly love and affection. And may the same ties that united us to our departed brethren continue to bind us to his afflicted and bereaved family, to sympathize with them and tender them all the consolation and relief which earthly friends can bestow. May we also, my brethren, seeing the uncertainty of life, forget not that preparation which is wisdom to make and weakness to defer. Let us here resolve to maintain with greater zeal the dignified character of our profession. May our faith be made manifest by a correct moral walk and deportment. May our hope be as bright as the glorious mysteries that will be revealed hereafter, and our charity as boundless as the needs of our fellow man. And having faithfully discharged the duties which we owe unto God, our neighbors, and to ourselves, when at last it shall please the Grand Master of the universe to summon us into his presence, may the trestle board of our lives pass such inspection that it be given unto each of us to eat of the hidden manna, to receive the white stone with a new name written thereon, which will ensure perpetual happiness in the paradise of God. That which we call death is only transition, for all that is good and true and just in human life lives on eternally. Our oaths do not lead to, but through the grave. For you see, we are all eternal beings, made in the likeness of God, and can never truly die. The lambskin, or white leather apron, is an emblem of innocence and the badge of a Mason. More ancient than the golden fleece of the Roman eagle, and more honorable than the star and garter. Its pure and spotless surface is to us a perpetual reminder of purity of life and rectitude of conduct. A never-ending argument for nobler deeds, for higher thoughts, for purer actions. And when at last our weary feet shall come to the end of life's toilsome journey, and from our nerveless grasp we shall drop forever the working tools of life, may the record of our life and actions be as pure and spotless as this fair emblem which is now placed with the remains of our departed brother. This evergreen, which once marked the temporary resting place of one illustrious in Masonic history, is an emblem of our enduring faith in the immortality of the soul. By it, we are reminded of our high and glorious destiny beyond the world of shadows, and that there dwells within this tabernacle of clay an imperishable, immortal spirit over which the grave has no dominion and death no power. This too I place with the remains of our departed brother.
And now the labor's task is o'er, and now the battle day is past, and now upon the farther shores land a voyager at last. Father, in thy gracious keeping, leave we now thy servants sleeping. Earth to earth and dust to dust, calmly now the words we say, left behind we wait in trust for the resurrection day. Father, in thy gracious keeping, leave we now thy servant sleeping.
To you, the immediate relatives and friends who are most heartbroken at the loss which we have all sustained, we have abiding consolation to offer. We sincerely and deeply and most affectionately sympathize with you in your bereavement, reminding you that he who even tempers the wind to the shorn lamb looks with infinite compassion upon you at this hour, and that he surely will fold the arms of his love and protection around you who put your trust in him. We bid you also to look with confidence for a day of glad reunion. For it cannot be, my friends, that the earth is man's only abiding place. It cannot be that human life is only a bubble cast up by the ocean of time to float but for a moment upon its troubled waters and then vanish into darkness and oblivion. Else why are the noblest aspirations of our souls unsatisfied? Man is surely born of a higher destiny than that of earth. There is a place where our loved ones, taken from us by death, may abide in our presence forever. Yes, my friends, the Holy Bible draws aside the black curtain that drapes the tomb and bids faith and hope comfort our hearts. It points beyond the silent portals of the tomb and bids us to turn our eyes with faith and confidence towards the opening scenes of a grand eternity. We leave then the mortal remains of our departed brother with a tender and affectionate farewell, in favorable expectation that his immortal soul shall partake of the joys which have been prepared for the righteous since the beginning of the world. And when at last he appears before that great white throne, may it be his portion here from him who sitteth as judge supreme. Well done, my good and faithful servant. Enter thou into the joys of thy Lord. For these things we beg in the name, who be the honor and the glory, now and forevermore. Let us pray.
May the good Lord bless and keep you. May the good Lord make his face to shine upon you and be gracious unto you. May the good Lord lift his countenance upon you and give you peace. Amen.
So mote it be. Right Worshipful Deputy Grand Master, close the three great lights.
Congratulations to these lodges for earning the Grand Masters Award for 2019. Newburgh Lodge number 174, Fellowship Lodge number 681, Madison Lodge number 44. Now congratulations to these lodges for earning the Grand Masters Award with distinction for 2019. Noble Masonic Lodge number 772, Lafayette Lodge number 123, Charles F. Frank Lodge number 760, Plainfield Lodge number 653, Daylight Lodge number 752, Celestial Lodge number 525, Rising Sun Lodge number 6, M.L. McClellan Lodge number 357, Mystic Tie Lodge number 398, Garfield Lodge number 569, Mooresville Lodge number 78, and Terre Haute Lodge number 19. Now congratulations to these lodges for earning the Grand Masters Award with high distinction for 2019. Jackson Lodge number 146, Westville Lodge number 192, White River Lodge number 332, Austin Lodge number 128, Newcastle Lodge number 91, Reed Lodge number 316, Whitney Lodge number 229, Nineveh Lodge number 317, Highland Lodge number 762, Mount Moriah Lodge number 77, Monroe Lodge number 22, Plymouth Cowinning Lodge number 149, Mount Etna Lodge number 333, Dunes Lodge number 741, Spencer Lodge number 95, Riley Lodge number 390, Noblesville Lodge number 57, Hannah Lodge number 61, Lime Lodge number 743, Calvin W. Prather Lodge number 717, Glen Park Lodge number 732, and Lessing Lodge number 464. And now the following lodges have earned a particular distinction by earning a top 10 position. Number 10, Kane Lodge, number 183. Number 9, Wayne Lodge, number 25. Number 8, New Albany Lodge, number 39. Number 7, Piru Miami Lodge, number 67. Number 6, Greenwood Lodge, number 514. Number 5, Evansville Lodge, number 64. Number 4, Indiana Harbor, number 686. Number 3, Social Lodge, number 86. Second, Waynedale Lodge, number 739. And number 1 is Millersville Lodge, number 126.
Behold how good and how pleasant it is when brethren dwell together in virtual unity. Brethren, it's been a pleasure to spend the morning with you, and as you recall at the beginning of our Founders Day program, you heard very many heart-spoken stories about why individual brothers joined this great fraternity. Brothers that are as different as the lodges and the communities they come from, and that's the true beauty of Masonry, that we recognize each other for their base goodness and not for our differences. And brethren, these are our stories. My name is Randy Seipel, Junior Grand Deacon, a proud 23-year member of Temple Lodge 47 in Greencastle. I didn't come from a Masonic family. When I started my career in law enforcement, I wanted to get involved in the community and to form myself into the kind of man I always hoped to be. So I observed people that I knew and that I grew relationships with and found those men within my community that I respected, and I wanted to emulate them. And while these men were different in their professions and their backgrounds, there was something the same about them. They were men of honor, they were men of their word, and they were men that you could trust. The common denominator in these men is that they were Masons, and that's what led me to join this great fraternity. And in 23 years, my Ashlar started out pretty rough, and through many triumphs and many tragedies, many failures and many victories, my life is better now because of my association with Freemasonry. I rely on my faith, my family, and my fraternity. That's why I joined this great fraternity of Freemasonry in Indiana, and that's why I continue to be a member.
Thank you, Randy. My name is David Morgan. I am your Senior Grand Deacon. I am a Freemason because of two very important reasons. Number one, the family of the fraternity. Wherever I go to visit in the tiled recesses of the lodges, I meet brothers from all over the state, and over the years they have become part of my family, as well as my genetic family. My Masonic career began actually over 100 years ago when my grandfather became a Mason in 1920. And then his son, my dad, and then myself, and then my son became a Mason, Slade. And so we're a very proud family. And we believe that brothers should stick together, should have one another's back. And that is just one of the many reasons that I have become a Freemason. Thank you.
Good afternoon, brethren. Gary Brindley, Junior Grand Warden, Grand Lodge of Indiana. Why I became a Mason. I became a Master Mason in 1985. At the time, I was beginning my professional career, and I was looking for an organization to do business networking. Instead, I became a member of a fraternity of brothers that were there to help me grow and learn. I learned how to become a public speaker by doing ritual and learning the Masonic lectures. I learned small and large group management as I went through the officer lines. I became and learned how to manage manage meetings. I learned moral and life lessons through the several Masonic lectures. I have stayed a Freemason because of the connections and friendships that I have had through brothers throughout the United States. And I have received many opportunities through those friendships and connections that have given me both professional and personal satisfaction. And that is why I continue to give back to the fraternity. Because for me, this fraternity, Art Gentle craft has given me more than I can ever give it in a lifetime of service. Thank you.
Hello, brethren. Richard Lentz, Senior Grand Warden. While growing up, admiring my grandfather, a Freemason, not understanding why he was putting on his suit to go to lodge when it was even 95 degrees in eastern Louisiana, witnessing the respect for him from all the men in the community and seeing how those same men looked after my grandmother after he passed away. While being inspired by my father-in-law and his brother, both Freemasons, watching and learning from their examples of love for their families. While learning that one of my longest mentors and friends in life is a Freemason, and I am continually challenged and inspired to learn from his example. While meeting other brothers who show through their words and actions that I can be more and do more, that they see more in me than I see in myself. Through these men and other Freemasons, I shared my journey, continue to be a traveler, and thereby improving myself and hopefully inspiring others. At the end of my journey, my hope is that through my efforts, I will leave this fraternity and world a little better than I found it, thereby walking in the footsteps of other Freemasons that have inspired me. That is why I'm a Freemason.
Good afternoon, brothers. Why I became a Mason. In the early 1980s, I faced every parent's worst nightmare. I lost two of my children. At that point in my life, I had lost faith in everything and everybody. But through people that I knew that I worked with, and through this fraternity, people that did not even know me voiced concern for my well-being. And I thought to myself, if that can be done for people to show compassion to somebody they didn't know, I wanted to be a part of this great fraternity. And I found that in every step of my life, good or bad, this fraternity and the brotherhood in it has been there to help everything along.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. My name is Kenny Roy. I'm the Grand Master of Masons, state of Indiana. And the question was, why am I a Mason? Well, growing up, I was part of a family that of parents that were not totally educated. And as such, they struggled hard to feed their family, which meant that they changed jobs and traveled a lot to make a living for the rest of us. As such, I probably changed schools about every 3 or 4 months. We moved from neighborhood to neighborhood, city to city, state to state. This happened all my life. And when I graduated from high school, I didn't even know the person that stood next to me. This left a gap in my life because most of us grow up with those childhood memories of friends that they treasure their entire lives. I'm not crying wolf, I just didn't have that. And in 1977, I was working with some gentlemen that I had a lot of respect for. And those gentlemen shared something. It was called Freemasonry. And out of curiosity, I listened in. I eavesdropped until one day I asked them to join, and they said, "We didn't think you would ever get to that." I joined Freemasonry out of curiosity. I am a Freemason because these men are my brothers. That's why I'm a Freemason. I want to thank you all for being with us this Founders Day. They've worked very hard to put this together, and I hope that it's been beneficial for you. And this recorded sessions will be available at a future date as soon as they work out the details of where it will be located. There's a lot to be learned by reviewing this again, and I hope that you've taken full advantage of this day. So until we meet again in person, I want to wish you the best. And at this point, I would like to ask that each and every one of you in your homes and in your lodges to stand for a closing prayer.
Let us pray. Gracious Lord, we stand reverently before you, ready to serve. As we draw to the close of our day together, we lift up those in the several communities in which we live. Bless essential workers, law enforcement, first responders, health professionals, and those who protect our freedoms both at home and abroad. Draw near to those who suffer in any way, and shed the light of your countenance upon them. Give to each of us, and all in our brotherhood, the spirit of wisdom, that in thy light we may see light, and in thy straight path we may not stumble, that in all our works begun, continued, and ended in thee, thy name may be glorified above all others. Amen.